Chapter 481. Boom! The Xianming heavy sword had the power of 1,000 caddies. In addition to Yiguchen's perfect physical body, the power of the sword was like Mount Tai. As the sword slashed down, even the air seemed to be compressed, emitting a whistling sound. Bang! A violent collision broke out. Yiguchen's eyes were slightly surprised. The body of the anaconda was unexpectedly sturdy. He only felt a strong rebounding force spread from the Xianming heavy sword to his arm. However, the anaconda was also forced back. However, Yiguchen's eyes were more serious. With his current strength, he could almost defeat anyone in the Divine Soul realm. In Yiguchen's opinion, even if it was a rank 4 demonic beast that was equivalent to the Divine Soul realm, it shouldn't be a big problem. However, the anaconda's strength was much stronger than an ordinary rank 4 demonic beast. Is it because of its existence in the forbidden zone of ancient desolation? Yiguchen thought to himself. Be careful. On the other side, the dragon lady shouted. At the same time, the totem power in her body surged. She blasted out her jade-like hand. Majestic water vapor gathered into a torrent and blasted towards the anaconda. Yiguchen knew that the anaconda's scales had amazing defensive power. His eyes flashed slightly and he changed his sword technique again. A vague sword essence came out from Yiguchen's body. Yiguchen had almost comprehended 80% of the edgeless sword essence. He only needed an opportunity to fully comprehend it. However, even if he hadn't fully comprehended it, the sword essence that was faintly emitted at this moment made Yiguchen's sword move even more powerful. Yiguchen's sword resonated with the void and vibrated. The Great Void Sword Wave was directly displayed. This time, Yiguchen's Great Void Sword Wave was even more powerful than before. Streaks of transparent sword wave seemed to cause the void to boil. After a period of comprehension and cultivation, Yiguchen's Supreme King level sword technique had been cultivated to a higher level. He could display 50% of its power. The 50% power far exceeded the Void Sword technique's 10,000-fold wave. Boom! The anaconda hissed as it was attacked by the sword wave. The sword wave directly pierced through its tough and flexible scales and struck its soft internal organs. The anaconda immediately wilted. Yiguchen and Dragoness saw this and took the opportunity to kill the anaconda. Looking at the dead anaconda, Yiguchen said, "The desolate beasts of this forbidden zone are indeed stronger than ordinary demonic beasts." Yes, but the harvest here is incomparable to the outside world. Dragon Lady's beautiful face revealed a hint of joy. She walked up the altar and took the heart of the sea. Yiguchen had no intention of fighting for it. For you. Dragon Lady directly split the heart of the sea into two and handed one half to Yiguchen. Killing the anaconda was mostly thanks to Yiguchen. Dragon Lady felt bad about taking half of it. When Yiguchen saw this, he did not stand on ceremony. It's better to refine such a divine item. Besides, this altar should be beneficial for refining, Dragon Lady suddenly said. Yiguchen glanced at Dragon Lady and nodded slightly. He knew that Dragon Lady was still curious about him. Back in Black Rock City, Dragon Lady was very curious about Yiguchen's cultivation. She realized that the serene blue serpent totem in her body was affected by Yiguchen's cultivation aura. Dragon Lady wanted to know how Yiguchen cultivated, which was why she suggested it. However, the altar did indeed have an amplification effect when refining water attribute divine items. The Dragon Lady wasn't lying. Looking at Yiguchen's eyes, Dragon Lady knew that her thoughts had been seen through. She was a little embarrassed. Yiguchen did not mind. After interacting with Dragon Lady for a long time, she was a trustworthy person. Next, the two of them sat on the altar and refined half of the heart of the sea. When Yiguchen was refining, he did not completely reveal the soaring serpent totem. However, the water-type totem power that spread out was very distinct. Dragon Lady looked at Yiguchen in surprise. Dragon Lady was not surprised that Yiguchen had totem power. In the past, Many prodigies from the 7 major factions had obtained some barbarian cultivation techniques and even totem formation techniques. What surprised Dragon Lady was that the totem power emitted from Yiguchen's body could even make her supreme totem, the serene blue serpent totem, feel oppressed. There was only one possibility. A progenitor-level totem. But was that really possible? Could someone without barbarian blood really condense a progenitor totem? The Dragon Lady looked at Yiguchen with her beautiful eyes. At this moment, Yiguchen was focused on refining the heart of the sea. It had to be said that this divine item was of a higher level than the mystic aqua jade that Dragon Lady had before. Yiguchen felt that the soaring serpent totem on his 5-colored golden core was becoming stronger and stronger. It was almost catching up to the vermilion bird and azure dragon totems. The weakest of the 5-colored golden core was undoubtedly the white tiger and black tortoise totems. After tasting the benefits, Yiguchen felt that the forbidden zone of ancient desolation was a land of treasures. If he could find enough altars, his 5-colored golden core would undergo a great transformation. After completely refining half of the heart of the sea, Yiguchen felt that he had become more intimate with the water-type power around him. Moreover, he had a vague understanding of the concept of being kind like water. Yiguchen slowly opened his eyes and saw Dragon Lady's watery eyes staring straight at him. "What's wrong?" Yiguchen asked calmly. "Although it's a bit abrupt, I can feel that you have a very powerful water-type totem. Its level is at least of the supreme totem level." Dragon Lady's crystal eyes were bright as she stared at Yiguchen. She could not believe that Yiguchen had a progenitor totem. This was because the progenitor totem was almost extinct even among the barbarians. Even the quadruple crown king, who had dominated the world, only had 4 supreme totems. Compared to the progenitor totem, there was still a gap. "So, you want to go to the barbarians and expose me? I seem to remember that the barbarians' rules do not allow anyone other than the barbarians to have a supreme totem." Yiguchen looked deeply at Dragon Lady. Dragon Lady only guessed that he had a water-type supreme totem. However, Yiguchen's true secret far exceeded Dragon Lady's guess. Not only did he have a progenitor totem, but a total of 5 progenitor totems. He was afraid that Dragon Lady could not accept it. "What kind of person do you think I am? You have helped me so much. Do you think I will bite the hand that feeds me? I just feel that your totem can help my totem evolve," Dragon Lady said angrily. Although she was shocked that Yiguchen had a supreme totem, they had been together for so long and were considered friends. Dragon Lady would not do such a thing. "Okay, then how can I help you evolve your totem?" Yiguchen asked. "No rush. Your totem has not awakened yet, right? Wait until your totem is truly awakened, then you can help me." "So, I will do my best to help you awaken your totem," Dragon Lady replied. Yiguchen nodded. He was actually a bit confused and did not know how to awaken his totem. With Dragon Lady's guidance, it was much more convenient. First, to awaken your totem, you must first complete the totem's power. In other words, you need more power to completely condense the totem, Dragon Lady said. After that, Yiguchen and Dragon Lady searched for altars in the forbidden zone of ancient desolation. And the heavens did not disappoint those who worked hard. Yiguchen and the rest found a few altars. After refining many water elemental divine items, Yiguchen also felt that the power of the Tang snake totem was boiling. It was just one step away from complete completion. At this moment, Dragon Lady suddenly looked surprised and said, "I sense the location of a water elemental altar. The water elemental totem power is stronger than the altars we found before." Dragon Lady was a water saintess. She had a special secret skill that could sense water elemental power. "Then, let's go," Yiguchen said. He was curious about what kind of changes would happen to him after awakening the Tang snake totem. But Dragoness had a serious look in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Yiguchen asked. "Koishue Inji is there too. Also, it seems like there are a few saints and saintesses from my tribe," Dragon Lady said hesitantly. "It's okay. Let's go and take a look." Yiguchen did not hesitate. Long Nu clenched her teeth when she saw Yi Guchen's indifferent expression. Immediately, she led Yi Guchen and rushed in a certain direction. Not long after they left, Bai Zichen suddenly appeared. He had a cold smile on his face and took out a communication jade slip. Chapter 482. Just as Bai Zichen took out his communication jade slip. On the other side, Zhou Tong, who was far away from the seven forces, also received the news. Oh, I didn't expect the maid beside him to be the Water Tribe's Dragon Lady. But looking at the situation, the Dragon Lady should have some conflict with the Water Tribe's Kuei Shui Yinji. If that's the case. Zhou Tong's eyes revealed a hint of deep meaning. He thought for a while and took out a few more communication jade slips with a cold smile on his face. I think Yi Guchen is helping the Dragon Lady to deal with the Water Tribe's Kuei Shui Yinji. If that's the case, I will inform those from the Fire Tribe and Thunder Tribe. They should be very interested in Yi Guchen's exotic fire and thunder. When the time comes, with the Water Tribe's Kuei Shui Yinji and Yi Guchen, will you be able to deal with this siege? Zhou Tong smiled faintly. And if outsiders knew that the geniuses of the seven forces were secretly communicating with the barbarian tribe saint to deal with people from the same camp, Zhou Tong would definitely be condemned by everyone. But obviously, with Zhou Tong's means, he would naturally be able to do it flawlessly. On the other side, Yi Guchen was still unaware of Zhou Tong's siege. But he also sensed that someone was following behind him, and it was Bai Zichen. In addition to the abnormality of Bai Zichen's leg, Yi Guchen was already certain that the person who was monitoring him in Black Rock City that day was Bai Zichen. As for the person behind him, apart from Zhou Tong, Yi Guchen could not think of anyone else. However, he did not act rashly and let Bai Zichen follow him just like that. He also wanted to know what methods Bai Zichen and Zhou Tong would use to deal with him. There were many altars in the forbidden zone of ancient desolation, and the level of the divine objects that existed were also different. At this moment, at the edge of a lake, a few figures were fighting with a ferocious wild beast. The wild beast was like a qilin. Its scales were dark blue and its mouth was constantly spewing out icy blue cold currents. Its strength had almost reached the peak of the divine soul realm. The strength of this water unicorn beast is really strong. A man in blue said. He was a saint of the Water Tribe. The rest of the saints and saintesses nodded in agreement. Only a beautiful woman with a coquettish face and a tattoo of a green snake was watching all of this coldly. It was Kuei Water Yinji. Seeing that the water unicorn beast was almost exhausted by the saints and saintesses, Ishui Yinji made her move. Vast water attribute totem power gathered in her hand and turned into many illusionary water snakes that charged toward the water unicorn beast. In the end, the water unicorn beast let out a miserable howl and fell to the ground, its vitality dissipating. You are indeed the strongest. The few saint princes and saintesses of the Water Tribe smiled at Kuei Shui Yinji. Among them, there was a woman who was extremely respectful towards Kuei Shui Yinji. Her name was Shui Linglong, and she was also a saintess of the water race. However, she had always been overshadowed by the radiance of the Dragon Lady. After Kuei Shui Yinji rose to power, Shui Linglong secretly joined her side. The reason why the Dragon Lady was set up by Kuei Shui Yinji was mainly because of Shui Linglong's secret messages. Don't worry, the divine item on the altar, the 9 Seas Sacred Pearl, is very powerful. I can't refine it all by myself, but I will give you a share, Kuei Shui Yinji said calmly. She knew that she had to treat those who followed her with kindness and authority in order to control them completely. However, when she thought of the few saints and saintesses who were extremely loyal to the Dragon Lady who did not give in, Kuei Shui Yinji's heart turned cold. Don't worry, as long as we kill the Dragon Lady, those people will follow you sooner or later, Shui Linglong said with a smile. Kuei Shui Yinji nodded slightly. At this moment, a voice filled with disappointment and coldness came from not far away. You are the one who betrayed me, Shui Linglong. After hearing the voice, Shui Linglong's smiling face changed instantly. She looked at the source of the voice. Two figures appeared slowly. One of them was a slim lady who was wearing a black hood. The dragon lady extended her jade-like hand and slowly took off her hood, revealing a head of long blue hair and a delicate face. Dragon. Dragon lady, it's you. Shui Linglong's face turned pale. However, when she looked at Kuei Shui Yinji and the others, she regained her composure. Shui Linglong, I treated you like a sister. I will give you half of the resources in the tribe. However, you chose to join Kuei Shui Yinji. The dragon lady was disappointed. Very disappointed. She was still wondering how Kuei Shui Yinji found out about her when she was very secretive. Now, it seemed that Shui Linglong was the one who leaked the information. Dragon lady, you are no longer suitable to be the saintess of the water tribe. Why are you dying in peace? Shui Linglong's eyes were filled with jealousy. She had always been jealous of the dragon lady. Until Kuei Shui Yinji appeared, she finally had the chance to defeat the dragon lady. You. The dragon lady sighed deeply. She glanced at the few people. She found that these people had completely joined Kuei Shui Yinji. Since that was the case, there was no need for her to hold back. Kuei Shui Yinji's eyes did not linger on the dragon lady for long. Instead, she looked at the young man in black robes beside her. This is the rumored sword master Yiguchin who had killed a life and death chamber expert. It seems like he doesn't have 3 heads and 6 arms. Kuei Shui Yinji was very confident in her own strength. Although the news of Yiguchin killing 10 saint sons and life and death chamber had spread like wildfire in the barbarian tribe. However, most of the saint sons and saintesses of the barbarian tribe did not care about it. The blood barbarian saint's son was not the strongest among the barbarian saint sons. However, Kuei Shui Yinji's strength was one of the best among the barbarian tribe saintesses. What? He's that Yiguchin. The other saint sons and saintesses of the water tribe were shocked. Shui Linglong's eyes showed a trace of fear. However, she immediately said, Dragon lady, you've fallen so low. You're mixing with the people of the 7 factions. Are you betraying the water tribe? Shui Linglong's words put the label of a traitor on Long Nu. Why waste time talking with them? Yiguchin sighed. In fact, other than Kuei Shui Yinji, the dragon lady did not want to hurt the other saint sons and saintesses of the same tribe. However, it seemed that Kuei Shui Yinji had pulled them to the same side. She even slandered the dragon lady and labeled her as a traitor. The dragon lady showed a self-deprecating smile. As the saintess of the water tribe, the people of the same tribe saw her as an enemy. However, Yiguchin, who was on the opposite side, stood firmly by her side. Dragon lady, since you're here, don't leave. After I get rid of you, I'll control the saint sons and saintesses who are loyal to you. By then, the water tribe will reach the peak under my leadership. Kuei Shui Yinji's aura exploded with ambition. Don't even think about it. The dragon lady gritted her teeth. She turned to Yiguchin and said, please. Yiguchin nodded. He was asked to do what he was asked to do. Ha, is the sword sect your backing? Very well. Let me have a try. Kuei Shui Yinji sneered and attacked. Yiguchen's eyes flashed and he drew his sword. A powerful aura spread out in all directions with a loud bang, intimidating all directions. Chapter 483. Feeling Yiguchin's surging aura, Kuei Shui Yinji's expression changed slightly. Yiguchin had not used the secret skill of soul devouring, so his aura was only at the 6th transformation. However, the intensity of his aura was comparable to Kuei Shui Yinji's at the 9th transformation. Moreover, the golden genuine qi released by Yiguchin's Sea of Qi was far more powerful than ordinary genuine qi. Therefore, Yiguchin's aura was not weak at all. Boom! Without any words, a chaotic battle broke out. Kuei Shui Yinji activated the totem power in her body. She waved her hand and the water element totem power condensed into water snakes. They tore at Yiguchin. Each of the water snakes could easily tear an ordinary divine soul realm expert in half. The saintess of a top tribe was indeed incomparable to the saintess of a second-rate tribe. Yi Guqin's eyes narrowed. The golden true qi in his body surged and infused into the Xianming heavy sword. Countless sword lights crisscrossed with each other, as if forming an impenetrable and sharp net, trapping the water snakes within and directly mincing them into countless splashes. Kuei Shui Yinji was surprised to see Yi Guqin easily fend off her attack. On the other side, Dragon Lady was fighting with Shui Linglong and the others. Dragon Lady was not weak. She was severely injured before, but now that she had recovered, she was at her peak. Dragon Lady took out the blue serene serpent totem. An illusory serpent appeared and suppressed Shui Linglong and the others. Kuei Shui Yinji's heart sank when she saw that. If she did not take care of Yi Guqin soon and Dragon Lady was free, she would be in trouble. Demonic Serpent Ring. Kuei Shui Yinji took out her dermic rune weapon. It was a circular weapon that looked like a snake biting its tail. There were sharp teeth at the edge. With the help of the totem power, the demonic serpent ring tore through the air and made a sharp sound. Yi Guqin's sword aura did not change. As he swung his Xianming heavy sword, it was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. Clang! 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 The Xianming heavy sword clashed with the demonic serpent ring. Kuei Shui Yinji twisted her waist and moved forward. As she waved her hand, more water snakes shot out. However, these water snakes were different from before. They were green in color and gave out a fishy smell. It's poisonous. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows, but he was not afraid. Inside his body, the heavenly sun Xianming fire burst out. The crimson and dark blue flames burst out, causing Yi Guqin to be surrounded by a layer of flames. Because he could control it freely, it did not burn his clothes. Heaven and earth unique flame. Kuei Shui Yinji was shocked. Water and fire. Water. She was the holy lady of the water tribe. She had the power of the water tribe and the unique flame of heaven and earth was her nemesis. Although she was wary, the unique flame of heaven and earth was not as deadly to the water tribe as it was to the blood barbarian tribe. Cold poison water. Kuei Shui Yinji formed a seal with her hands and the totem power in her body burst out. Around her, waves of water blocked the attack. Kuei Shui Yinji took out a blue water current. The dark blue water flow was like a water dragon. It streaked across the void, bringing with it waves of extreme coldness. Even before it really came into contact with Yi Guqin, a layer of frost had already appeared on his skin. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows and the power of the heavenly sun Xianming fire spread out. The cold poison water was a power that was on the same level as the unique flame and unique lightning. As Yi Guqin activated the unique flame, the frost on his skin melted instantly. Yi Guqin raised his hands and the flames shot out and clashed with the cold poison water. As the water and fire clashed, there was a loud sizzling sound and a thick white mist spread out. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. As the white mist spread out, he took out the unique lightning in his body. The purple lightning nether lightning followed the cold poison water and attacked Kuei Shui Yinji. As water could conduct electricity, it increased the speed of the purple lightning nether lightning. When it was about to hit Kuei Shui Yinji, she realized it and said in surprise, "Damn it, the unique lightning of heaven and earth." The barbarian tribe only knew some of Yi Guqin's achievements but they were not clear about his skills. For example, Kuei Shui Yinji did not know about the unique flame and unique lightning. In a hurry, Kuei Shui Yinji took out a defensive martial art and a water shield formed in front of her. Even so, the powerful purple lightning nether lightning forced Kuei Shui Yinji to retreat a few hundred feet. Kuei Shui Yinji spat out blood and felt numb all over. Yi Guqin used the shadow step and left a trail of afterimages. He instantly charged forward and slashed at Kuei Shui Yinji's head. Kuei Shui Yinji screamed and took out her highest totem. Along with the surging totem power, the shadow of a giant snake with 9 heads appeared. That was Kuei Shui Inji's highest totem, the nine-headed hell snake. The reason why Kuei Shui Inji could become the new saintess and even be one of the strongest saintesses of the water race was largely because of her totem. Hell snake roar. Ishui Inji yelled. The 9 heads of the 9-headed hellish snake opened their mouths at the same time. A terrifying sound wave that could shatter mountains spread across the area. The terrifying sound wave even affected Dragon Lady and the others who were fighting not far away. Ha, even the 9-headed hell snake totem has been taken out. How long can sword sect last? Shui Linglong sneered. Frogs at the bottom of a well. You know nothing about Yiguchen's power, Dragon Lady said coldly. Humph, Dragon Lady, you really are a traitor. When Kuei Shui Inji kills Yiguchen, will you still be able to run away? Shui Linglong said with disdain. She had not seen Yiguchen's power with her own eyes. Hence, she did not care about the rumors. On the other side, Yiguchen did not underestimate the power of the terrifying sound waves that were coming at him. His sword vibrated with the void and he used the Great Void Sword Wave again. The two transparent waves clashed with each other and the shockwaves caused the ground around them to crack. Kuei Shui Inji's body was affected and she quickly retreated. Terrifying shockwaves invaded her body. If it were not for the 9-headed hell snake totem, her organs would have been shattered. Kuei Shui Inji stared at Yiguchen. She expected Yiguchen to be severely injured. After all, the hell snake howl was not only a sound wave attack but also a soul attack. However, to Kuei Shui Inji's astonishment, Yiguchen acted as if nothing had happened. He only took a few steps back and then charged at her again with his sword. How is that possible? Kuei Shui Inji's face turned pale. She could not believe it. Yiguchen looked calm. With the fallen star demonic soul butterfly as a spiritual guardian, normal soul attacks were useless against Yiguchen. Now, it's my turn. Yiguchen immediately used the god-slaying sword skill, Yama. A tall shadow of the King of Hell rose from the ground behind Yiguchen. Along with Yiguchen's sword, it swept out at the same time. Kuei Shui Inji blocked with the 9-headed hell snake totem, but she was still sent flying and spat out blood. On the other side, Shui Linglong and the others' faces turned pale and their lips trembled. It's over. Just as Yiguchen was about to end Kuei Shui Inji's life, a black lightning bolt shot out. A black thunderbolt suddenly shot toward Yiguchen. Yiguchen's eyes flashed, and he retreated. A figure appeared here, surrounded by pitch-black lightning. It's you, Lei Jiuming. Dragon Lady's face changed. On the other side, another 2 figures appeared. It was a man and a woman. They were the Saint Yen Shao and Saintess Huan Mei, of the Fire Tribe. Dragonessa's heart sank to the bottom. Chapter 484. Dragon Girl did not understand why Lei Jiuming, Yen Shao, and Huan Mei would come here. However, those who came did not come with good intentions. It was not a coincidence that they came here. Yiguchen glanced coldly at Lei Jiuming and the others. Yiguchen did not know these barbarian saints and saintesses, but he was not afraid. What surprised him was that Zhou Tong would secretly collude with the barbarians. Yiguchen did not alert the enemy and let Bai Zichen follow behind him because he wanted to know what method Zhou Tong would use to deal with him. However, this scene was slightly out of his expectations. It seems that in order to get rid of me, Zhou Tong, you are really unscrupulous. Yiguchen sighed inwardly. Zhou Tong was good at scheming and had a glib tongue. He had never fought with him head-on and only used various methods to suppress him. But now, Yiguchen was tired of it. Why would he use scheming when he could solve things with strength? When this matter was over, Yiguchen would settle the score with Zhou Tong. However, he still had to deal with the matter at hand. Yiguchen, what should we do? Dragon Girl also stopped and returned to Yiguchen's side. Her face was extremely solemn. It's okay. I am here. Yiguchen said indifferently. His face was as calm as an ancient well. Dragon Girl glanced sideways at Yiguchin. As long as she was by his side, she would always feel at ease. It was as if nothing could threaten him. On the other side, Koishue Inji wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She felt lucky. If Lei Jiuming and the others did not appear, perhaps she would have died in Yiguchin's hands today. Thinking of this, Koishue Inji looked at Yiguchin with an extremely cold gaze. In the distance, Baizichin, who was hiding in the dark, looked at this scene with a cold smile. Zhou Tong did not go back on his words. He had indeed informed the barbarian saints to come and kill Yiguchin. Do you think you can escape this time? Baizichin thought coldly in his heart. Lei Jiuming, Yan Xiao, Hua Mei, and the others who had come this time were not holy princes of second-tier tribes like the blood barbarian tribe. They were holy princes of major tribes, and their strengths were incomparable. You don't seem to be surprised at all. Lei Jiuming took a step forward. His expression was cold, and his body was surrounded by pitch-black lightning. He was Lei Jiuyo's younger brother. Although his glory was overshadowed by his elder brother, it didn't hinder his own strength. This time, Lei Jiuyo had indeed rushed over after receiving Zhou Tong's message. His first objective was naturally to obtain the exotic lightning in Yiguchin's body. Within the Thunder Tribe, there was a special secret technique that could rob others of the mutated lightning they had refined. Lei Jiuming also wanted to become a genius with dual mutated lightning, just like his brother. As for his second goal, it was naturally to see just how strong this sword sect, whose reputation was not weak even among the berserkers, was. Yan Xiao and Hua Mei, obviously had the same idea. They coveted Yiguchin's heavenly rare flames. Why should I be surprised? I already know who informed you to come here. Yiguchin's tone was calm. Humph, it seems that you're not as stupid as he said. But in this situation, how can you turn around? Why don't you just surrender and let us rob you of your mutated lightning? Then we can give you a quick death. Yan Xiao, the holy prince of the fire tribe, smiled coldly. They weren't holy princes of the blood barbarian tribe, so they weren't too afraid of Yiguchin. Who has the right to ask me to surrender? You? Yiguchin slowly raised his Xianming heavy sword. Alright, it's more interesting to struggle. Let me do it first. Yan Xiao, the holy prince, held the blazing giant axe and attacked alone. On the other hand, Hua Mei, and Lei Jiuming didn't attack for the time being. The holy princes of the barbarian tribe had their own pride. If not for special circumstances, they wouldn't have joined forces. If even Yan Xiao can't deal with him, then it's disappointing. Lei Jiuming crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the scene indifferently. On the other side, Dragon Lady was also fighting with Koishue Inji, Shui Linglong, and the others. Koishue Inji had been severely injured by Yiguchin and couldn't use her full strength. Even with Shui Linglong and the others joining forces, they could barely deal with Dragon Lady. On the other side, Yan Xiao, the holy prince, held the blazing giant axe and rode on the fire demon demonic tiger. He charged straight at Yiguchin. The fire demon demonic tiger was also a powerful rank 4 demonic beast. It was comparable to the peak divine soul realm. With the holy prince's power, the two combined forces made the impact extremely powerful. Boom! The flaming owl Saint Sun chopped down with his axe, carrying an intense blazing aura. Yiguchin swung his Xianming heavy sword. Yan Xiao, the holy prince, focused on refining his body. His strength was strong, and with the support of the giant axe, he had a fierce fighting style. Yiguchin had used brute force to defeat the barbarian race. He had used the brute force that the barbarian race was best at. Yiguchin activated the power of his perfect physical body and the power of his transformed invincible Vajra body. Yiguchin's body surface was faintly green and gold. His strength instantly rose to a new level. With the addition of the Xianming heavy sword strength, the power of this blow was extremely strong. Humph, you want to fight me head-on? Seeing that Yiguchin didn't dodge, the holy prince sneered. Compared to the holy prince of the barbarian tribe, the geniuses of the seven super forces were at a disadvantage in terms of physical strength. Yiguchen looked thin and didn't look like someone who specialized in refining his body. Therefore, the holy prince couldn't help but look down on him. However, when Yiguchen's heavy sword collided with the blazing giant axe, the holy prince's face suddenly changed. Bang! A loud explosion sounded. Yiguchen retreated a few steps, but the holy prince and the fire demon tiger retreated more than 100 feet. Feeling the numbness in his arms, the holy prince was stunned. Yiguchen's physical strength was far beyond his expectations. He actually forced Yan Xiao to retreat. Hua Mei, and Lei Jiuming were surprised. They knew about Yan Xiao's physical strength. As if he wasn't convinced, the holy prince activated the secret technique of refining his body again. Streaks of crimson demonic patterns appeared on the surface of the flaming owl holy sun's skin. His originally tall and sturdy body seemed to have become even more muscular. Yiguchen found it familiar. The crimson demonic patterns were similar to the body refining technique used by Shintu Miao. However, Shintu Miao's level was obviously not at the level of the Holy Prince. 9 forms of mountain splitting. The Holy Prince roared like a tiger roaring in the forest. The power of the fire totem surged all over his body. The first strike was blocked by Yiguchen with his sword. Then came the second strike. The third strike. The fourth strike. With every strike, his power would multiply and his aura would become more ferocious. He has already used the 7th strike. It seems like the battle is about to end, Hua Mei said with some boredom. Hua Mei knew the power of the Holy Prince's 9 forms of mountain splitting the most. If Yan Xiao really used the 9th strike, even the double crown king of the fire tribe, Yan Xuanji, would not be able to block it easily. The 8th strike. The holy son of Yan Xiao slashed out with his axe again. Yiguchen took another step back and groaned in his chest. However, his face was extremely calm. Finally the 9th strike. Yiguchen said indifferently. What? You did it on purpose. The holy prince's face froze. He originally thought that it was because of his unparalleled power that Yiguchen did not have the ability to interrupt his 9-form combo. However, now it seemed that Yiguchen had done it on purpose. He wanted the holy prince to use his most powerful technique. Arrogant brat. The result of your arrogance is to die. The holy prince's aura surged as he struck the 9th strike. This strike was accompanied by the image of a giant flaming tiger. It was extremely ferocious and shook the forest, causing the earth to tremble and crack. Facing such a powerful attack, Yiguchen's heart was as calm as still water. A thick and heavy sword will was emitted. It was the edgeless sword will that was about to be completely comprehended. Yiguchen wanted to use the Holy Prince's pressure to completely form his edgeless sword will. Chapter 485. Ever since Yiguchen obtained the Xianming heavy sword, he had been trying to comprehend the edgeless sword essence. After such a long time of comprehension, in addition to the comprehension gained from several battles, Yiguchen could be said to have almost touched the edge of comprehending the edgeless sword essence. At this moment, the Flaming Owl Saint Sun's strong move was based on strength, which could help Yiguchen comprehend it. The essence of the edgeless sword essence was that the heavy sword was edgeless. The path of the sword was not fast and sharp, but it was as calm and unmoving as the earth, breaking tens of thousands of pounds with one blow. The Flaming Owl Saint Sun's axe was accompanied by the shadow of a giant flaming tiger, as if it really had the power to split a mountain. Under this strong pressure, Yiguchen suddenly heard the sound of glass shattering in his mind. A familiar sword will that arose spontaneously took shape and spread out. It was the edgeless sword essence. Boom! An extremely ferocious sword intent spread out like tidal waves. Wave after wave of vibrations spread out in all directions, causing the ground to crack. The surrounding trees were blown apart by these vibrations, turning into wood chips and dust that filled the sky. This Whether it was Huamei, Lei Jiuming, or the Dragon Lady, Kuei Shui Yinji, Shui Linglong, or the others who were fighting not far away, they all looked surprised. Yi Guqin's sword essence was extremely strong, and it swept out around. Bang! Yi Guqin did not use any sword techniques, nor did he use any fancy sword moves. He simply swept out with his sword and collided with the flaming owl Saint Sun's giant axe. At the moment of collision, waves of vibration spread out again. This was not the effect of the Great Void Sword Wave, but the sword wave that the edgeless sword essence carried. It could be said that when Yi Guqin used the edgeless sword essence, countless sword waves spread out and bombarded all directions. This is a peerless sword essence. Lei Jiuming's face instantly became serious. This strong sword essence had obviously exceeded the scope of an ordinary sword essence. It could only be a peerless sword essence. Boom! When the two clashed, the Yen Shao Holy Sun's expression changed drastically. If Yi Guqin's earlier strength had only surprised the Yen Shao Holy Sun somewhat, then this was not the case. But now, Yi Guqin's sword force was like Mount Tai, causing him to feel a suffocating pressure. The flaming owl Saint Sun's body retreated dozens of feet, his chest trembling violently. That terrifying sword wave contained an extremely strong vibrating force. If the flaming owl saint had not focused on refining his body and blocked it with his moves, he would have been seriously injured. Even so, the fire demon demonic tiger he was sitting on let out a sorrowful roar, before it directly collapsed onto the ground, its breathing weak. The fire demon demonic beast was struck by the sword wave, and its internal organs were all ruptured. It was not far from death. Damn it! The flaming owl Saint Sun's face darkened. At this moment, Yi Guqin felt that his mind was clear, as if a dusty mirror had been polished. Edgeless sword will was the sword will that he had comprehended to perfection in his previous life, so when he comprehended it, he had a feeling of mastery. His proficiency level was close to that of the Shura sword will. Yi Guqin swept out with his sword, accompanied by the pervasive sword qi. An extremely strong pressure, like Mount Tai, directly covered the flaming owl Saint Sun's body. What kind of technique is this? The flaming owl Saint Sun was shocked. He felt as if the surrounding air had turned into extremely dense mercury, and his movements became sluggish. Yi Guqin's lips curled up in a cold smile. This was only the initial manifestation of the edgeless sword will's characteristics. Every peerless sword will could bring a special enhancement to the cultivator's strength. For example, the murderous aura of the Shura sword will. For example, the extreme speed brought about by the sword will of the void. And this edgeless sword will naturally had its own characteristics. It could create a powerful domain to suppress the enemy, making the enemy's hands and feet tied. Yi Guqin was only at the initial manifestation, and had not truly released it. But even so, the Yen Shao Holy Sun was still shocked, and he was a little overwhelmed. Boom! 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 As Yi Guqin fully comprehended the edgeless sword will, his attacks became more vigorous and ferocious. Even the flaming owl Saint Sun was gradually at a disadvantage. Bang! After another collision, the flaming owl Saint Sun's figure retreated rapidly, and blood faintly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Yi Guqin's eyes were as sharp as a sword, and he directly stepped forward and slashed down with his sword. Oh no! Seeing this, Huamei twisted her waist and directly flashed out. Deep sky flame! Huamei shouted, and a faint black flame surged out from her arms. It turned into two flame whips and lashed out at Yi Guqin. Is this the heavenly flame? Yi Guqin saw it from the corner of his eye. He executed wave-like subtle steps, and his body moved sideways. The Xianming heavy sword was like a black shield, blocking Huamei's attack. However, the deep sky flame's temperature was extremely high. Even with the Xianming heavy sword in between, Yi Guqin could feel an extreme heat. At the same time, a fierce look flashed across the flaming owl Saint Sun's eyes. He also summoned a crimson heaven and earth unique flame. Demonic tiger fire. Yen Shao roared. As the crimson flame rolled, it vaguely condensed into the shadow of a giant flaming tiger, roaring at Yiguchin. The two saint sons and saintess of the fire tribe tacitly summoned their heavenly flames at the same time, besieging Yiguchin. Yiguchin's expression did not change. The fire tribe was born with an affinity with the power of fire, so it was not strange for them to possess heavenly flames. Yiguchin also summoned the heavenly sun Xianming fire. The three heavenly flames collided, and the intense heat turned the surrounding forest and vegetation into ashes. How can you compare to the fire tribe when it comes to heavenly flames? Hua Mei sneered. The flame whips formed by the deep sky flame were like spiritual snakes, lashing at Yiguchin from all directions. The flaming owl Saint Sun also exerted his full strength, chopping down at Yiguchin with his flaming axe. He did not believe that they could not defeat Yiguchin with their combined strength. Seeing this, Yiguchin activated the edgeless sword essence again. The Xianming heavy sword slashed horizontally, accompanied by waves of sword wave. At the same time, an extremely strong binding force made the flaming owl Saint Sun and Hua Mei feel a great amount of pressure. What kind of technique is this? Hua Mei's expression changed. She felt that the surrounding space was squeezing her. Great Void Sword Wave. Yiguchin performed the Great Void Sword Wave. The Supreme King level sword art, which had already reached a higher level, and the enhancement of the edgeless sword essence, caused the space around Yiguchin to vibrate like the surface of a drum. The terrifying sword wave spread out like ripples. Boom! Boom! The flaming owl Saint Sun and Hua Mei were sent flying again, blood flowing from the corners of their mouths. They looked at each other and could see the killing intent in each other's eyes. Heavenly demonic flaming tiger. Netherfire sparrow. Both of them activated their supreme totems. Two light figures spread out, accompanied by smoke and flames. A huge flaming tiger and a sparrow surrounded by faint black flames appeared at the same time. Yiguchin's face was calm when he saw this. His sword essence surged again, and the surrounding void seemed to be distorted. Immediately, an extremely illusory domain spread out. Vaguely, an illusory primordial sacred mountain appeared in the void, as if it could suppress the heavens. This was the sword domain of the edgeless sword essence. Chapter 486. The sword realm was a technique that could only be used after one had comprehended the sword principle. However, if one had a profound understanding of the sword essence, one could also manifest the illusory sword realm in advance. Unlike the Azura sword essence, the edgeless sword essence was the sword essence that Yiguchin was most familiar with. Hence, after comprehending it, Yiguchin could directly display the illusory sword realm. What Yiguchin displayed before him was the sword realm of the edgeless sword essence, the gravity sword realm. The illusory immemorial sacred mountain was still spinning in midair. As it spun, waves of energy spread out and covered the surrounding forest. In an instant, the Yen Xiao Holy Sun, Hua Mei, Lei Jiuming, Kuei Shui Yingji, Shui Linglong, and the others who were not far away felt a huge pressure as long as they were covered by the gravity sword realm. It was as if the immemorial sacred mountain was pressing on their shoulders. Damn it, what is this? The Yen Xiao Holy Sun, Hua Mei, and the others were shocked. Although Yiguchin had used a similar technique earlier, it had only caused some pressure. Now, in the gravity sword realm, the Yen Xiao Holy Sun and the others felt as if they were carrying a huge mountain. Their movements were not as agile as before. This is... Dragon Lady, who was in the gravity sword realm, was shocked. She realized that she was not affected at all. Yiguchin could naturally control the gravity sword realm that he released. If I can truly transform the edgeless sword essence into sword principle, I can directly control the immemorial sacred mountain and suppress all my enemies, Yiguchin thought to himself. However, Yiguchin was still satisfied with the performance of the gravity sword realm. Under the restriction of the gravity sword realm, the Yen Xiao Holy Sun and the others were greatly suppressed and restrained. Dragon Lady's eyes flashed as she looked indifferently at Kuei Shui Yingji, Shui Linglong, and the others. Oh no! Kue Shui Inji and the others' hearts sank. The gravity sword realm was like a swamp that restricted their advantages in all aspects. However, Dragon Lady was not affected at all. Under such circumstances, Dragon Lady naturally had the advantage. On the other side, the Yen Xiao Holy Sun and Hua Mei, who had used the totem spirit manifestation technique, gritted their teeth and held on in the gravity sword realm. Boom! 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 Yiguchen's sword swept out and collided with the two totem spirits. How did his speed become so fast? The flaming owl Saint Sun gritted his teeth. It's not that he's getting faster, it's that we're getting slower. Hua Mei, was sweating profusely, her face red. Inside the gravity sword domain, she felt as if she was carrying a huge mountain on her back. Every single movement was extremely strenuous. If not for the fact that they were part of the barbarian race and paid attention to the cultivation of the physical body, they would not have been able to do so. If it were an ordinary martial artist, it would consume an enormous amount of physical strength. Yiguchen held the Xianming heavy sword in his hand and resonated with the air. Waves of sword waves merged with the gravity sword realm, which made the two saints of the fire tribe feel exhausted. Bang! After another collision, the flaming owl saint spat out blood and retreated. As for Hua Mei, because she was a woman, her physical strength was slightly weaker, and she was in an even worse state. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, she was actually forced to half-kneel on the ground by the gravity. Lei Jiuming, are you still not going to make a move? The flaming owl Saint Sun roared. The barbarian tribe saints had their own pride, but it was also built on the fact that they were superior. Now that they could not even protect their lives, they did not care about their pride. Seeing this, Lei Jiuming's eyes flashed with black lightning. He was also bound by the gravity sword domain, but Lei Jiuming's physical strength was even stronger than the flaming owl Saint Sun's after being tempered by the unusual lightning. Hence, although the gravity sword domain could bind him, it was slightly weaker than the flaming owl Saint Sun and the others. I didn't expect you to have such means to create a domain. But even so, I will use a secret technique to take away the exotic lightning in your body. At that time, I will be like my brother and become a peerless holy sun with dual exotic lightning in my body. Lei Jiuming's eyes revealed a trace of desire. Oh. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows. Lei Jiuming probably did not know that Yiguchen did not only have one type of unusual lightning, but two. Moreover, the two types of unusual lightning could merge. This was something that even his brother Lei Jiuming could not do. Boom! Lei Jiuming did not say much. His footsteps moved slightly and there was a thunderous boom. Accompanied by the flash of lightning, he quickly charged towards Yiguchen. This was a movement technique of the Thunder tribe, Thunder Steps. As he charged towards Yiguchen, Lei Jiuming took out a bright lightning blade. It was equally sharp and it shot out lightning. Oh, your speed is not bad, Yiguchen said indifferently. To be able to have such speed in the gravity sword domain, the movement technique must be of a high rank. However, Lei Jiuming frowned. Thunder Steps was the top movement technique of the Thunder tribe. Its speed was as fast as lightning. However, in the gravity sword domain, the speed of Thunder Steps was reduced by more than 40%. This was already a great restriction. Yiguchen also used Shadow Steps. The two figures crossed each other. The Xianming heavy sword collided with the lightning blade. Sword chi and lightning spread in all directions. Lei Jiuming's thunder totem power spread throughout his body. As he raised his hand, electricity appeared in the void. Raging thunder kill. Lei Jiuming took a step forward and his body flashed. The lightning blade shot out violent lightning and stabbed towards Yiguchen's temple. Yiguchen blocked with his sword and used the ultimate move of Boundless Heaven Sword Principle. He turned into a boundless heaven. Countless sword chi soared into the sky and blocked Lei Jiuming's ferocious attack. The two of them clashed continuously and it was an intense fight. However, because it was in the gravity sword domain, Lei Jiuming's consumption was far greater than Yi Guqin's. His sword domain can actually last for such a long time. Lei Jiuming thought to himself. His gaze was solemn. Logically speaking, to maintain such a powerful sword domain, it would definitely consume a lot of true qi and soul power. However, how would he know that Yi Guqin's sea of qi and sea of consciousness were far superior to people of the same realm? Although the gravity sword domain consumed a lot of true qi, it was still difficult for Yi Guqin to be exhausted. If so, then I cannot drag it on for too long. Lei Jiuming's mind was set and he did not drag it on any longer. He gripped the air with one hand and activated the mutated thunder in his body. Suddenly, a violent black thunderbolt spread out from his arm. Like a spider web, it covered the surrounding void. This is the 9 underworld black demonic thunder, Yi Guqin thought to himself when he saw it. The 9 underworld black demonic thunder was not of the Xian thunder level. However, its power was not ordinary. It was even more domineering than his purple electric nether thunder. Of course, the attributes of the 2 mutated thunders were not the same. Yi Guqin was intrigued and immediately took out the purple electric nether thunder. Humph, you indeed have the mutated thunder. However, it will still belong to me in the end. Lei Jiuming's eyes were burning with passion. The mutated thunder was very rare. Even in the Thunder clan, not everyone could have it, let alone having 2 of them. Hence, Lei Jiuming was determined to get Yi Guqin's mutated thunder. However, was that all? Yi Guqin had a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Following his activation, there was another silver thunderbolt that cut through the void and shook the heavens. This is... Lei Jiuming's voice was choked as a tinge of surprise appeared in his eyes. The Flaming Owl Saint and Huan Mei widened their eyes. At this moment, who was the Thunder Clan Saint? Chapter 487. The Flaming Owl Holy Sun and the rest thought so too. Because at this moment, compared to Lei Jiuming, Yi Guqin was surrounded by 2 colored thunderbolts and looked more like the Holy Sun of the Thunder Clan. The power of Yi Guqin's mutated lightning was even stronger than Lei Jiuming's. Moreover, he had released 2 types of mutated lightning at the same time. The visual impact was incomparable. How is this possible? How can you have 2 types of mutated lightning? Lei Jiuming stared at Yi Guqin in disbelief. The shock in his heart was indescribable. In his heart, his brother Lei Jiuming should be the number 1 thunder sovereign with 2 types of mutated lightning. However, the mutated lightning was extremely violent. The reason why Lei Jiuming could refine it was because he had the bloodline of the thunder god. However, the young man in front of him was famous for his swordsmanship. Logically speaking, he should be extremely lucky to have obtained 1 mutated lightning. However, he had obtained 2. Otherwise, he would have refined them perfectly at the same time. How could Lei Jiuming not be jealous? This was something that even he, the Holy Son of the Thunder Clan, could not do. Moreover, after sensing the power of the Silver Thunderbolt, Lei Jiuming knew that the Silver Thunderbolt was at least of the Dark Lightning level. No, I don't believe it. The mutated lightning in your body is just a gift. Lei Jiuming's eyes were burning with passion. He stepped on the thunder steps and held the thunder blade in his hand. Once again, he attacked Yi Guqin fiercely. As he waved the thunder blade, the pitch-black 9 underworld demonic lightning spread into the void like a spider web. Yi Guqin's face was cold. The purple lightning nether thunder and the extreme void dark thunder spread out at the same time and wrapped around the Xianming heavy sword. He waved his sword and a violent shock wave with powerful 2-colored mutated lightning collided with Lei Jiuming's thunder blade. Suddenly, sparks flew and lightning intertwined. However, no matter how strong the black 9 underworld demonic lightning was, how could it be stronger than the impact of 2 types of mutated lightning? The black 9 underworld demonic lightning was torn apart by Yi Guqin's 2 types of mutated lightning. However, the remaining power of the mutated lightning also charged towards Lei Jiuming. Humph! Lei Jiuming's figure retreated continuously, his chest shook violently, his arms were charred black, and a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. If it weren't for the fact that he had been tempered by unusual lightning since he was a child, this strike alone would have severely injured him. I will not lose. Lei Jiuming's eyes focused as he activated the totem spirit. In an instant, with a long roar, the pitch-black demon thunder of the underworld rose from Lei Jiuming's body and gathered into a pitch-black thunder beast in the air. This was Lei Jiuming's supreme totem, the Nine Serenity Thunder Beast. The spirit of the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast was surrounded by pitch-black lightning. It looked like a swan and eye, but also like a qilin. After summoning the Nine Serene Thunderous Beast, Lei Jiuming's aura rose steadily. Even lightning shot out from his eyes. Roar! With a fierce roar, the Nine Depths Thunder Beast charged straight at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin's Zhenqi began to gather, and the power of the strange thunder became even more violent. Two different types of lightning tore the sky and cracked the earth as they swept through the surroundings and bombarded the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast. Rumbling Thunder Secret Skill. At the same time, Lei Jiuming displayed the secret skill of the Thunder Tribe. As the rumbling thunder secret skill was displayed, the lightning on his body became even more violent, as if it was boiling. At this moment, he could severely injure an expert in the 8th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm with a casual strike of lightning. Thunderstorm Slash. Lei Jiuming's body also turned into a pitch-black lightning. Together with the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast, he charged at Yi Guqin. The dazzling lightning gathered in his hand, forming a pitch-black lightning ball. Boom! In Yi Guqin's mind, the star's soul wave spread out. Lei Jiuming was hit and his body stopped in an instant. As for the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast, it was not affected at all. Yi Guqin's heavy sword slashed down. Accompanied by the two-colored lightning, it smashed onto the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast's head. In addition to the impact of the strange thunder, the black lightning on the surface of the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast's body was dispersed. At this moment, Lei Jiuming finally attacked. Yi Guqin's other hand clenched in the air. Powerful lightning gathered in his hand, forming a two-colored strange thunder ball. His fist collided with Lei Jiuming's move. Majestic lightning flashed in all directions. Wherever it touched, the ground cracked inch by inch, destroying the forest. At the moment when the two moves collided, Lei Jiuming felt an extremely powerful physical strength, accompanied by the strange thunder power, fiercely hit him. It made his arm feel numb and his arm bones were faintly broken. Puff! Finally, Lei Jiuming could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood as he retreated dozens of feet. Lei Jiuming had shown signs of defeat. What are you waiting for? Attack together. Lei Jiuming's face was extremely gloomy. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said coldly. With his identity as the Thunder Tribe's holy son, facing the geniuses of the 7 major forces, he did not even spare them a glance. But now, he actually needed to team up. To him, this was a great humiliation. When the Flaming Owl Holy Sun and Huamei saw this, their eyes were filled with determination. They knew that if Yi Guqin did not die in this battle, then they would. Therefore, the 3 of them were determined to use their strongest moves to end Yi Guqin's life. The 3 of their totem spirits rushed towards Yi Guqin at the same time, and they also used all their moves. Flowing Light Fire Feather. Huamei's slender waist twisted and her arms stretched out. The fire elemental totem power erupted from her body. Streaks of deep heaven fire shot out like a rain of fire, its power shocking. Tiger Roar Flaming Demon Slash. The Flaming Owl Holy Sun held the flaming giant axe in his hand. Totem power gathered on the axe, along with the power of the Tiger Demon Fire, and the axe slashed towards Yi Guqin. As for Lei Jiuming, his eyes turned into lightning. Above the firmament, dark clouds suddenly gathered and thunderclouds rolled. Lei Jiuming raised one hand and clenched it in the air. He said brazenly, "Thunder punishment." Whoosh! As soon as he said that, endless lightning suddenly poured down from the dark clouds. It was as if it was going to cleanse the earth. Its power was terrifying. facing the three barbarian holy sons' ultimate moves and the pincer attack of the three totem spirits. It could be said that even if Xian Hao, the young war emperor and the others were here, they would be in great danger. Not far away, the dragon lady had already suppressed Kuei Shui Yinji and the others. However, when she saw this from the corner of her eyes, her face turned pale. The fluctuation was too powerful. It was not something that an ordinary person could withstand. Dragon lady, I'll let you be proud. Once Yiguchen dies, you won't be able to survive. Kuei Shui Yinji's mouth was bleeding, but her face was vicious. In the distance, Bai Zichen, who was hiding in the dark, was also looking at this scene happily. Yiguchen, you're finally going to die. Bai Zichen was extremely excited. His eyes were bloodshot. He could not wait to see Yiguchen's body being torn apart. In the field, the endless fluctuation of attacks finally engulfed Yiguchen's figure. Yiguchen did not even make a sound. Is he dead? At this moment, Lei Jiuming, the flaming owl holy son, Huamei, Kuei Shui Yinji, and Bai Zichen in the distance all stared at him. The dragon lady's face turned pale. She clenched her hands tightly. However, at this moment, an extremely dazzling golden light suddenly spread out from the smoke. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, a golden lotus slowly bloomed. It was the sword sect's unique skill, Reincarnation Sword Lotus. Chapter 488. The golden lotus protected Yiguchen's body. As it spun, the 36 petals slowly bloomed. This was the sword sect's ultimate technique that Yiguchen had comprehended on the 8th floor of the sword sect pagoda, the Reincarnation Sword Lotus. Compared to when he could only comprehend 18 leaves in the beginning, Yiguchen could now unleash 36 leaves of the sword lotus. Although it was still some distance away from wind-sweeping tower's 72 leaves, its power was already at the level of a trump card among all of Yiguchen's martial arts techniques. Yiguchen rarely used the Reincarnation Sword Lotus, but its power was not inferior to the 6th form of the god-slaying sword art, the heaven-splitting sword soul, and the merciless heavens. Moreover, Yiguchen discovered that the Reincarnation Sword Lotus was actually shaped like a lotus. It could be used to attack the enemy and defend oneself. The sharp sword chi could not hurt Yiguchen at all. Therefore, it was extremely good for defense. Its effect was even better than the protection of Luo Tian. Under the contrast of the golden lotus, Yiguchen looked like a god who had descended to the world with an otherworldly aura. How is this possible? Lei Jiuming and the other two were already stunned. He couldn't be any clearer about the power of the moves they used. However, the three of them could not cause much damage to Yiguchen even when they joined forces. The dragon lady's heart was pounding, and her emotions were fluctuating. At first, she was not as nervous as Yiguchen, but now, she was relieved. She looked at Kuei Shui Yinji and Shui Linglong again. At this moment, their faces were even paler. Yiguchen's strength was really something that they could not compare to. As for Bai Zichen, who was hibernating in the distance, the veins on his forehead were bulging, and his face was ferocious. Why? Why isn't he dead yet? Bai Zichen was extremely unwilling to accept this. Yiguchen's strength was beyond everyone's expectations. At this moment, Yiguchen's expression was indifferent as he glanced at Lei Jiuming and the other two. Lei Jiuming and the other two's hearts sank slightly. Since you've made your move, it's my turn now, Yiguchen said indifferently. The golden sword lotus outside his body abruptly left his body and expanded explosively in midair. Between the 36 petals of the lotus, there seemed to be countless sword energies intertwining and cutting each other. The past life sword lotus was an ultimate technique of the sword sect, and it was extremely complicated and formidable. It was absolutely impossible for an ordinary person to survive once they fell into it. Quickly retreat! Lei Jiuming shouted loudly. He used thunder steps and was about to retreat. The flaming owl saint's son and Huamei retreated at the same time. Yiguchen's eyes turned cold. Can you escape? A domain that was as powerful as a mountain spread out and enveloped everyone present once again. It was the gravity sword domain. Lei Jiuming and the other two's speed suddenly dropped. As for the golden sword lotus, it was like a golden mountain range that suppressed the three figures within it. Soon after, countless strands of golden sword chi erupted as if they were boiling. The miserable cries of Hua Mei, and the others rang out. In just a short while, blood and broken bones spurted out from the golden lotus. The golden sword lotus looked extremely beautiful and magnificent. However, it was the most powerful killing move. It was comparable to being cut into pieces by 1,000 blades. Seeing the three saints turn into pieces of flesh and blood in an instant, Yishui Yinji, Shui Linglong and the others' faces were extremely pale. Dragon Girl did not let go of this opportunity and immediately attacked. With the help of the gravity sword domain, Yishui Yinji, Shui Linglong and the others were killed by Dragon Girl in the end. After everything was settled, Dragon Girl heaved a sigh of relief. Her heart was still pounding. If it was not for Yiguchen, they would be in a dangerous situation. Dragon Girl felt lucky to have roped in such a powerful ally. Why do I feel that you haven't shown your true strength? Dragon Girl glanced at Yiguchen and said. Yiguchen smiled and did not say anything. His opponents were the Triple Crown Kings and even the Quadruple Crown Kings of the barbarian tribe. Although Lei Jiuming and the others were not weak, they were not qualified for him to use his full strength. Dragon Girl wanted to say something, but Yiguchen said, "Wait here. I will go and settle something first." After saying that, Yiguchen looked at the dense forest in the distance. An extremely cold light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, he used the shadow step and flashed away. Dragon Girl looked in that direction thoughtfully. As expected, there were also people from the 7 major forces who were trying to frame Yiguchen. In the dark, after seeing Yiguchen kill Lei Jiuming and the others, Bai Zichen wanted to escape immediately. However, Yiguchen's divine soul perception range was very wide. He could not escape from Yiguchen's lock. Whoosh! A sword chi came from behind. Bai Zichen could not dodge in time and was hit in the back. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. When he slowly raised his head, he saw Yiguchen, who was dressed in a black robe, looking at him indifferently. "What are you doing? Why did you attack me?" Bai Zichen asked evasively. "Are you still playing dumb?" Yiguchen said coldly. "I don't know what you are talking about. I just happened to pass by and saw you fighting. With the grudge between you and me, I will not help you. I was just observing in the dark." "Why? Are you going to kill me too?" Bai Zichen tried to defend himself. "You were the one who followed me in Black Rock City that day, right?" Yiguchen put his hands behind his back and secretly held a jade slip in his hand. "I don't know anything." Bai Zichen's eyes showed a hint of panic. "That day in Black Rock City, I killed the masked man's leg, and you." Yiguchen flicked his finger. Sword chi burst out and tore Bai Zichen's pants, revealing a sword wound. "You." Bai Zichen's face alternated between green and white with extreme panic. He knew that Yiguchen would not show any mercy when facing an enemy. "What do you want to do? Do you want to kill a fellow disciple?" Bai Zichen said. He knew that it was useless to defend himself at this moment. "I can give you a chance to live. Tell me, who is the mastermind?" Yiguchen asked. In fact, he already knew in his heart that this was the case. He just needed evidence. "Is that true?" Bai Zichen gritted his teeth. "I have never taken you seriously," Yiguchen said indifferently. Bai Zichen was furious, but he still snorted coldly and said, "It was Zhou Tong who roped me in to deal with you. Not only that, he also wants to unite everyone who has a grudge against you to deal with you." Yiguchen put away the jade slip in his hand with a cold gaze. "What are you doing? You said you wouldn't kill me." Bai Zichen panicked. "I won't kill you, I'll only." Yiguchen flicked his finger. The 6-pulse divine sword shot out, stabbing at Bai Zichen's wrist, ankle, and the chi vessel below his abdomen. With a puff, Bai Zichen's chi vessel was crippled. Not only that, the tendons in his hand and leg were all severed. Ah! A heart-wrenching pain caused Bai Zichen to scream miserably. Large beads of sweat spread on his face. You actually crippled me. Bai Zichen's heart was dead. With his chi vessel destroyed and his limbs crippled, Bai Zichen was like a cripple at this moment. This is also your punishment. Yi Guchen said and left. Yi Gu Chen. Bai Zichen let out a heart-wrenching roar. Although Yi Guchen did not personally kill him, what was the difference between a crippled person and a dead person in a place like the ancient desolate forbidden zone? Go find Zhou Tong. Only he can save me. Bai Zichen took out a jade slip and crushed it. At the same time, he crawled on the ground like a dead dog, leaving behind trails of blood. He was unwilling to accept this. He still wanted to take revenge on Yi Guchen. After an hour, Zhou Tong appeared in front of Bai Zichen. He was dressed in white and waved a folding fan as he looked at Bai Zichen indifferently. Zhou Tong, save me. Bai Zichen crawled to Zhou Tong's feet and hugged his leg. The former second in the Sword Sect Tower Forest's inner court is now in such a state. Pitiful. Zhou Tong shook his head slightly. From the moment Lei Jiuming and the others did not send him a message, Zhou Tong knew that the plan had failed. Yi Guchen's strength had exceeded his expectations. I must see Yi Guchen die with my own eyes. Bai Zichen's handsome face was now covered in dust and blood, looking like a malicious ghost with resentment. I promised you that Yi Guchen will definitely die, but you might not see it with your own eyes, Zhou Tong said indifferently. What do you mean? Bai Zichen's expression froze as his heart turned cold. Boom! Zhou Tong did not reply. Instead, he ruthlessly stomped his foot with vigorous true energy on Bai Zichen's back, directly crushing his chest and shattering his heart, ribs and everything else. You! Bai Zichen spat out a large mouthful of blood mixed with his shattered organs. His face was still twisted. What's the point of keeping a cripple? Zhou Tong said coldly. Bai Zichen's eyes were wide open as he died with remaining grievances. Yi Guchen, who he regarded as his mortal enemy, did not kill him with his own hands. Instead, it was Zhou Tong who killed him. Filled with endless resentment and regret, Bai Zichen died hatefully. However, Zhou Tong's eyes grew colder. Yi Guchen, very good. It seems that it won't be easy to kill you. However, everyone has a weakness, and your current weakness is the Sword Sect Tower Forest. Zhou Tong's lips curled into a sinister sneer. He had a plan to destroy the entire Sword Sect Tower Forest's inner court. Chapter 489. After dealing with Bai Zichen, Yi Guchen returned to the altar. Is it done? Dragon Lady asked casually. Yes. Yi Guchen nodded and said, what do you plan to do next? Since Kuei Shui Yinji is dead, I should return to the Water Tribe and gather the people who are loyal to me. Dragon Lady twirled her blue hair and said. Yes. You can have the Water God item, Yi Guchen said. The water altar had a rare god item like the 9 Seas Pearl. Since Kuei Shui Yinji was dead, the treasure naturally belonged to them. Dragon Lady shook her head. No, Dragon Lady said. This 9 Sea God Pearl is useful to me, but it is not that big. It is very useful to you. After you refine it, your totem should be perfect. I will tell you how to awaken your totem. Yi Guchen played a big part in Kuei Shui Yinji's death. Dragon Lady was not going to be stingy. Alright then. Yi Guchen did not stand on ceremony with Dragon Lady. The way to awaken the totem is to use your soul to communicate with the totem after your totem power is complete. Of course, the test is very dangerous. If your mind is not strong enough, you will not succeed. You will be consumed by the totem's will. Dragon Lady sounded serious. As someone who had been through it, Dragon Lady still felt scared when she thought about the test of the totem's will. I understand. Thank you. Yi Guqin nodded. If it were some other test, Yi Guqin might have thought it was troublesome. But when it came to the test of mind, Yi Guqin was better than most people. His mind was unshakable. Why are you being so polite with me? Dragon Lady rolled her eyes at Yi Guqin. She said goodbye and left. Yi Guqin did not waste time. He went to the altar and took the 9 Seas pearl. He started to refine it into his body. It had to be said that the 9 Seas divine pearl was a top-tier existence among water-type divine items. The water-type power it contained was much more powerful than the mystic water jade and the heart of the sea. As soon as Yi Guqin began to refine the pearl, he sensed that the soaring serpent totem on his 5-colored golden core was beginning to stir. It was like a black hole, unleashing a powerful gravitational force that greedily absorbed the power of the 9 Seas god pearl. While Yi Guqin was immersed in his cultivation, the entire ancient desolation forbidden zone was in an uproar. The source of the commotion was Yi Guqin killing Lei Jiuming and the other holy sons. Originally, no one should have known about this matter. However, it was as if it had grown wings, and practically everyone knew about it. Yi Guqin's actions were an encouragement to the 7 great forces, but to the barbarian race, it was a humiliation. Under such an atmosphere, the conflict between the 7 forces and the brute race became even more intense. Somewhere in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, a figure with long blue hair and a cold face grabbed the neck of a prodigy from one of the 7 forces. Cold lightning shot out of his eyes. It was the peerless holy son of the lightning tribe, Lei Jiuyo. He exerted force in his hand and crushed the throat of the prodigy. His face was cold. Yi Guqin, how dare you kill my brother? I will repay you 100 times, 1,000 times. Lightning was brewing in Lei Jiuming's eyes. What was shocking was that the lightning in his eyes was not the same. Like Yi Guqin, he had the dual strange lightning in his body. At this moment, Lei Jiuyo sensed something and took out a jade slip. Someone had sent him a message. Oh, great. Yi Guqin, I will collect some debts first. Lei Jiuyo muttered to himself. His eyes were cold as he left. On the other side, the Fire Tribe's double-crowned king, Yan Xuanji, had red hair and green eyes. He had also received the message. Against the sword sect Ta Lin. Oh, the sword sect is a threat. However, the people of the Fire Tribe are not that easy to kill. Yan Xuanji sneered and left. At the same time, Jin Zhanglie, the Triple Crown King, the Golden Sun Saint and the Feng Tribe's Triple Crown King, Feng Shaotian, had also received the message. The saints and saintesses of the Wood Tribe and the Earthen Tribe also sensed the wind and began to move. At this moment, the entire ancient desolate forbidden zone felt like a storm was brewing. Before they reached the ancient desolate ring, a great battle was about to break out. Yi Guqin, who was in the middle of the storm, had already refined the 9 Seas divine pearl on the water altar. After he had completely refined the totem, Yi Guqin could feel that the power of the soaring serpent totem was about to overflow. A strong water energy filled the air, causing the surrounding forest to be filled with water mist. At the same time, Yi Guqin's comprehension of the water will had reached a high level. This was the blessing of the divine item. Since this is the case, let's start to awaken the totems. Yi Guqin thought to himself. He also wanted to know if he would become the barbarian tribe's quintuple crown king after all 5 totems were awakened. He might also comprehend the 5 elements sword will. At that time, Yi Guqin would be a sword cultivator with 3 types of sword will. Not many people in the South Sky region had such talent in the sword Dao. Yi Guqin calmed down and closed his eyes to communicate with the soaring serpent totem with his soul power. Yi Guqin's soul power gradually condensed and seeped into the soaring serpent totem. In an instant, Yi Guqin felt his surroundings darken. It was as if he had arrived in another world. In the boundless ocean, waves rolled. Yi Guqin's body was like a small boat, drifting in the ocean. The ocean was endless and boundless. It seemed like there was no end to it. Is this the test of the soaring serpent totem? Feeling the endless despair and loneliness, Yiguchin's heart turned cold. This kind of test was nothing to him. Then, the endless waves rolled and the ocean flipped. Yiguchin was sometimes sucked into deep-sea whirlpools and sometimes sunk to the bottom of the sea. Yiguchin was very indifferent to something that ordinary people would be terrified of. Not only that, he also used this opportunity to comprehend the concept of water. Although water had a calm side, it was no weaker than fire when it went berserk. This was the two sides of the coin. Yiguchin seemed to have understood something. At this moment, in the ocean illusion, a huge serpent of unknown miles long emerged from the ocean. Its wings extended from its ribs. It was like a real dragon. Sometimes it rolled the ocean, sometimes it soared into the sky. It controlled the ultimate meaning of water. Finally, the soaring serpent opened its mouth and swallowed Yiguchin. Yiguchin did not resist. He was very calm and his heart was like a boulder. Just as he was about to be swallowed up, Yiguchin in reality suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, his dark eyes seemed to have turned blue. He looked similar to the dragon lady, but he was more powerful. Totem spirit manifestation. Yiguchin's eyes shone brightly and he let out a long roar. With a boom, the power of the water totem burst out. Then, the shadow of a huge serpent with wings appeared in the void. With a roar, the entire ancient desolate forbidden zone seemed to tremble. It was accompanied by an extreme pressure of the progenitor totem. That mighty pressure spread out, and it caused all the berserkers in the entire forbidden zone to be shocked. Chapter 490. Where did this pressure come from? In the forbidden zone of ancient desolation, many holy sons and holy daughters of the barbarian tribe looked at Yiguchin in surprise. The pressure did not differentiate between attributes. The pressure of an ancestor-level totem could suppress anyone below the ancestor level. Even the supreme totem would be suppressed. Why do I have the urge to worship him? Some of the barbarian saints looked uncertain. In their respective clans, their statuses were extremely high and lofty. Yet now, they actually felt a sense of reverence towards that indescribable pressure. Even the supreme totems within their bodies were faintly trembling. Somewhere in the barren forbidden zone, Dragon Lady, who was looking for the water tribe, suddenly stopped. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise as she looked in the direction of the pressure. As the saintess of the water tribe, she was more sensitive to the pressure of the water ancestor totem than the other barbarians. The dragon girl opened her tender lips slightly and muttered to herself in a daze, "It can't be. That wave, could it be Yiguchin?" Dragon Lady had just parted with Yiguchin and she was the one who told Yiguchin how to awaken the totem. And now, the direction where the totem pressure came from was where Yiguchin had been. Dragon Lady was smart. How could she not know that the ancestor-level totem pressure was coming from Yiguchin after he awakened? How is that possible? Ancestor totem. No wonder I felt that his totem could help the serene blue serpent totem evolve. Dragon Lady suddenly realized. The reason why the ancestor totem was a top totem was that it had a special ability. It could suppress and help the totem below the ancestor level to evolve. That was why the ancestor totem was so rare. Dragon Lady was sure that if the news of Yiguchin having the ancestor totem spread, the elders of the water tribe would not sit still. Even though the water tribe was not as cruel as the other barbarian tribes, they would not tolerate an outsider having the ancestor totem. Sigh. I'll contact him when the time comes. Yiguchin should know the gravity of the situation. Dragon Lady sighed. She could not leak this information. Yiguchin's soaring serpent totem was awakened for the first time, thus he was unable to control its aura well, causing the ripples to spread in all directions. Even Lei Jilyo, Golden Sun Saint Sun, Yan Xuanji, Feng Xiaotian, and the other top prodigies of the barbarian tribe could feel the terrifying totem pressure. At the same time, somewhere in the ancient desolation forbidden zone, A young man with a head full of gray hair and dressed in gray robes stared coldly at Yiguchen. His body was wrapped in chains, and his feet were bare, but his posture was incomparably robust. He was Tuoba Shang, the king of 4 crowns of the barbarian race. Translator, Transin editor, Transin, the ancestor totem is as predicted by the priests of the 5 Elements Temple. A king of 5 crowns will be born in this war. As long as I kill that person and take away his ancestor totem, I can become the real king of 5 crowns and lead the barbarian tribe to conquer the Saint Origin dynasty. Tuoba Shang's eyes were burning with undisguised ambition. He had a high status and came from the Tuoba family, one of the 2 barbarian families in the 5 Elements Temple. The 2 barbarian families had a higher status than the 5 Elements barbarian tribe. Each of them had 1/3 of the right to speak in the 5 Elements Temple. The Tuoba family's attitude was the main reason why this war had started. The Elders Guild of the 5 Elements Temple was willing to support the Tuoba family mainly because of the existence of Tuoba Shang, the king of 4 crowns. In addition, Lord Tian Barbarian also wanted to cultivate a king of 5 crowns. Hence, he agreed to be Tuoba Shang's guardian. This time, Tuoba Shang had already made up his mind to become the invincible king of 5 crowns. Anyone who stands in my way will die. Tuoba Shang stomped on the ground with 1 foot. His body was like a dragon as he swept in the direction of the oppression. At the water element altar, Yiguchen was finally able to control the powerful soaring serpent's power. The soaring serpent's spirit returned to Yiguchen's body again. Yiguchen felt that his aura had increased again. At the same time, his consciousness sea was spinning like a whirlpool. In just a short while, Yiguchen's cultivation had broken through to the 7th transformation of the divine soul realm. It was a natural process. His comprehension of the water sword essence had also improved by leaps and bounds. Moreover, the soaring serpent totem still had many skills to be comprehended by Yiguchen. However, it was not a good time to do so. The fluctuation just now has probably attracted the attention of the barbarian tribe. I shall leave for now. Yiguchen's footsteps flashed as he fled. The news that he possessed the ancestor totem could not be leaked. At least, before he went to the 5 Elements Temple to obtain the sacred elixir, he could not reveal it. Not long after Yiguchen left, several figures appeared at the same place. Almost all of them were from the barbarian tribe. However, it was a pity that they did not see anything. Not long after, a gray-haired youth arrived and looked around. It's Tuoba Shang. Some of the barbarian tribe holy sons and holy daughters stepped back. Their eyes were filled with respect and fear. The barbarian tribe worshipped the strong and Tuoba Shang was almost the closest to the legendary king of 5 crowns. Humph, you left quickly. However, I will definitely find you. Tuoba Shang's eyes were cold as he left. After leaving, Yiguchen began to comprehend the water sword essence while looking for other altars. After awakening the soaring serpent totem, Yiguchen was even more determined to awaken other totems. He did not want to become the king of 5 crowns. He only wanted to comprehend the peerless sword essence of 5 elements. Next, Yiguchen found a few more altars. However, the 5 elements sacred items on these altars were not at the level of the 9 seas pearl. However, they slowly filled up the 5-colored golden core. 2 days later, Yiguchen found an extremely rare fire elemental altar. There was a fire elemental sacred item on it, the red sun essence. However, the desolate beast guarding this fire elemental altar was extremely ferocious. It was a flaming demonic bull. Yiguchen used the same method. In the end, he used the god-slaying sword technique, Permitha, to end the flaming demonic bull's life. Yiguchen began to refine the red sun essence. However, to Yiguchen's surprise, he felt a vibration in his origin ring. Yiguchen used his mind, and a fiery red egg jumped out of it. Brother Condor. Yiguchen was surprised. After absorbing the heavenly fire divine sparrow's blood essence, the divine condor turned into an egg and fell into a deep sleep. He did not expect that there would be a change at this moment. do you need the red sun essence? Yi Guqin separated a portion of the red sun essence's power to nourish the egg. As time went by, the surface of the egg was covered with cracks. Then, the eggshell cracked and a childish voice was heard. Grandpa Condor has finally awakened. This time, Grandpa Condor will transform and break through the sky and become the king of all beasts. Following these bold words, a fist-sized, furry and cute creature that looked like an angry little red bird jumped out. Brother Condor. Even with Yi Guqin's character, he was speechless when he saw the divine Condor in such a state. Hey, little Yi, why are you looking at Grandpa Condor like that? Are you envious of Grandpa Condor's handsomeness? The transformed divine Condor shook its feathers and looked at Yi Guqin in confusion. Then, it lowered its head and looked at itself. Fuck, is this really Grandpa Condor? A childish voice, accompanied by vulgarities, screamed. Chapter 491. One had to admit that the divine Condor looked very adorable at this moment. Its height had shrunk to the size of a fist, and its grayish-brown feathers had turned fiery red. It looked like a phoenix. But the divine Condor couldn't accept such an adorable appearance. Oh heavens, oh earth, why have I become like this? How am I going to face my beautiful crane and my harem when I go back? The divine Condor looked up at the sky, speechless and choked with tears. Brother Condor, you should think positively. At least, no one will mistake you for an idiot anymore. Yi Guqin comforted. Boy Yi, are you comforting me or insulting me? The divine Condor cast a sidelong glance at Yi Guqin. No, but Brother Condor, your aura, although the divine Condor was only the size of a fist and looked harmless, the aura it emitted made Yi Guqin feel pressured. If he underestimated its strength because of its appearance, he would be at a disadvantage. Kaka, that's right. I have broken through and become a 5th-rank demonic beast. The divine Condor raised its little head proudly. A 5th-rank demonic beast was comparable to a life and death realm warrior. But why do I feel like I am being suppressed here? The divine Condor was puzzled. Yi Guqin said, there is a special formation here. Even life and death realm warriors will be suppressed. I see. But I need to work hard to transform now. As long as I reach the peak of the 5th rank and become the heaven and earth spiritual bridge, I should be able to change my appearance. The divine Condor flapped its little wings. Having gotten used to its huge body, its current appearance was too disgusting for the divine Condor. It couldn't bring out its majestic appearance. Brother Condor, can you protect me? Yi Guqin sat cross-legged on the altar, preparing to refine the remaining red sun essence. No problem. The divine Condor said. With its 5th-rank demonic beast strength, there weren't many people in the Forbidden Zone who could threaten it. Yi Guqin also began to cultivate again, preparing to awaken the vermilion bird totem. The vermilion bird totem was similar to the azure dragon totem. It was a totem that Yi Guqin had discovered early on. It had also absorbed the heavenly fire divine sparrow's blood essence and divine fire. Therefore, its transformation was slightly easier than the soaring serpent totem. On the other side, the inner court disciples of the Sword Sect's forest of pagodas had arrived before a gorge. After passing through this valley, we will reach the inner part of the Forbidden Zone. That should be where the fighting ring is located. Yan Wushuang stood in front of everyone in the inner court. She had a tall and slender figure, and she had a pair of fair and slender legs that were like ivory. She was even more eye-catching. Beside Yan Wushuang were Ji Ling, Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, Li Lingxiao, and the other inner court disciples. They hadn't separated, but had always been together. I wonder where Brother Yi is right now. The commotion he's caused this time isn't small at all. Chu Qingqi sighed. He had only entered the Forbidden Zone for a short while, but he had already killed 3 saints. Moreover, he wasn't a second-tier tribe like the Blood Barbarian tribe. When the news spread, some of the disciples of the 7 major forces were quite excited. The inner court disciples were even more honored. Humph, who cares what he does? He always likes to be a hero by himself. Yan Wushuang snorted coldly. She seemed to be complaining about Yi Guqin, but if one listened carefully, it sounded like a young girl's coquettishness and also seemed to be worried about him. Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the others all looked at Yan Wushuang strangely. Had the flower of the inner courtyard completely fallen into his hands? Wushuang, you don't love me anymore. Ji Ling hugged Yan Wushuang's arm, her beautiful eyes filled with hidden bitterness. What are you thinking about? Alright, let's hurry up. Yan Wushuang's beautiful eyes slightly evaded as she said forcefully. Yan Wushuang was originally extremely cold and arrogant, but since Yi Guqin had turned the tide alone at the exchange, Yan Wushuang's state of mind seemed to have changed. Originally, she had shouldered all the pressure of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest alone. But now, an even colder figure was standing in front of her, blocking all the wind and rain for her. Although it might not be for her, Yan Wushuang's heart still wavered. She suppressed the chaotic emotions in her heart for the time being and led the inner court disciples directly into the valley. Not long after they entered, Zhou Tong, who was dressed in white, stood on a rock outside the valley. He fanned himself with a faint smile on his face. The prey has already entered the trap. Yi Guqin, what should you do? If you come, you will definitely die. If you don't, the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest will be destroyed. This choice is difficult. Zhou Tong's smile carried a trace of pride. This valley was the place Zhou Tong had chosen for the inner court disciples to die. This trap was to invite the enemy into the trap. There were some weak desolate beasts in the valley that were easily killed by Yan Wushuang and the others. Yan Wushuang was also atop Heaven's pride, so with her around, the inner court disciples could safely arrive here. Of course, Ji Ling and the others weren't weak either. However, without Bai Ziqin and Wang Xiaotian, the inner court's overall strength had decreased slightly. The inner court still didn't know that Bai Ziqin had died. However, right when the inner court disciples were about to cross the valley, on the road ahead, a figure stood there calmly. Dark blue long hair fluttered in the wind, and his entire body carried a ghastly cold aura. His eyes flickered with lightning. He didn't say a word, and just standing there quietly seemed to emit a suffocating aura. The Lightning Clan's peerless saint, Lei Jiuyo. Yan Wushuang waved her hand and indicated for the inner court disciples behind to stop. Her beautiful eyes were slightly solemn as she said, Lei Jiuyo, we haven't even reached the desolate ancient arena, and we're already going to determine the victor. Lei Jiuyo's eyes shot out oppressive cold lightning when he heard this. Victor? You're wrong. What I want is the complete destruction of your Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. His ghastly tone carried a type of coldness. Yan Wushuang's pretty face changed when she heard this. Chu Qingqi and the others immediately thought that Lei Jiuyo's attitude was probably because Lei Jiuming had been killed by Yi Guqin. Lei Jiuyo, although you're the Thunder Clan saint, you're dreaming if you want to destroy all the elites of my Sword Sect Pagoda Forest alone. Yan Wushuang rebuked coldly. Lei Jiuyo didn't answer. At this moment, a cold voice sounded behind the inner court disciples. If Lei Jiuyo isn't enough, what if I join in? The inner court disciples suddenly turned around and saw a red-haired, green-eyed youth blocking their path of retreat. Fire Clan's double-crowned king, Yan Xuanji. Chu Qingqi's tone was extremely solemn. Ha, this place is really lively. In the air, two figures appeared like two dazzling suns. They were the two saints of the Gold Clan. One was the Triple Crown King, the Golden Sun Saint, and the other was Jin Zhanglie. The inner court disciples' expressions changed at this moment. They already felt the pressure of death. A breeze blew past, and the Wind Clan's Triple Crown King, Feng Xiaotian, who was dressed in green, also arrived. He looked at the scene in front of him with interest. The hearts of all the inner court disciples, including Yan Wushuang, were heavy. In addition, saints and saintesses from the Wood Clan and the Earth Clan had also arrived. However, They only watched from afar and did not make a move. In addition, people from the 7 major forces had also arrived. Chapter 492. After all, the barbarian tribe had caused quite a commotion. Hence, some of the geniuses from the 7 major forces had also received the news. Xian Feng and Xian Dai from the Limitless Sword sect had also arrived. They were also watching from the outside of the valley and did not interfere. Princess Yuanxi, Mo Lengjia and Fang Chen from the Saint Origin Academy had also arrived. Ren Tingting from the Consonance Palace had also arrived. There was even a hint of gloating in her beautiful eyes. She seemed to be very happy to see the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest fall into such a situation. Logically speaking, as they were all from the 7 major forces, they should temporarily put aside their previous enmity. However, they were watching the fire from the other side of the river. They were watching with great interest. In the valley, Yan Wushuang and the others who were surrounded by the barbarian tribe felt heavy in their hearts. At this moment, how could Yan Wushuang not know that someone had set a trap for them? Especially when the location of the valley was blocked. There was no way to advance or retreat. Even the elites from the inner sect would find it difficult to escape as there were cliffs on both sides. The person who had set this place up wanted to destroy the entire Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Who is it? Yan Wushuang was puzzled. Was it the barbarian tribe? But why was the barbarian tribe so clear about their movements? Moreover, they were all elites from the barbarian tribe. Could it be? A cold thought rose in Yan Wushuang's mind. The person who wanted to frame the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was from the 7 major forces. Under such a situation, they still wanted to frame the people from the same camp. How vicious and ignorant they were. Yan Wushuang gritted her teeth in hatred. However, the most important thing now was how to get through this crisis. Now that you have no way out, if you kill yourselves, you can save yourself from this futile torture, Yan Xuanji said faintly. There is no such coward in the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Yan Wushuang unsheathed her sword. Her hair fluttered in the wind. Although she was a woman, she had a spirit that was not inferior to a man. Courageous, but very stupid. Lei Jiuyo's eyes were cold. He did not say anything else and directly attacked. Yan Xuanji and Jin Zhanglie also attacked at the same time. How boring. The Golden Sun Saint shook his head slightly. He did not attack immediately. The Feng clan's Triple Crown King, Feng Xiaotian, was also watching. Actually, as far as they were concerned, Lei Jiuming, Yan Xuanji, and Jin Zhanglie were enough to deal with Ta Lin's group. What they truly cared about was the Sword Master. On the other side, Chu Qingqi had also sent a message to Yiguchen. Only Yiguchen could resolve this predicament. Everyone, don't worry. We just have to hold on until Senior Brother Yi arrives. That's right. Once Senior Brother Yi arrives, all the barbarian race's holy sons will have to stand aside. Persevere and wait for Senior Brother Yi to sweep through these barbarians. At this moment, many inner academy disciples began to roar. There was no despair on their faces. Instead, they were filled with determination and confidence. It was brought to them by Yiguchen. Every time the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was in despair, the only person who could turn the tide and bring them hope was Yiguchen. Yan Wushuang was a little disappointed when she heard this. Yiguchen's current reputation in the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was already on par with experts like Feng Manlu. However, Yan Wushuang was no longer jealous. She had to hold on until Yiguchen arrived. At the same time, Yiguchen was cultivating on the fire elemental altar. He had finally completely refined the Crimson Sun essence. At this moment, Yiguchen's entire body was bathed in vermilion bird flames. He looked as if he was about to be reborn. An extremely vigorous fire elemental totem power gushed out from his body. Boom! Yiguchen's body erupted like an ancient volcano. Accompanied by a loud and clear cry, a fiery red vermilion bird spirit spread out from Yiguchen's body. Its wings were hundreds of feet wide and its entire body was surrounded by vermilion bird divine fire. As soon as the vermilion bird's spirit appeared, an extremely hot energy swept through the surroundings. It burned all the trees within a radius of several miles, turning them into pitch-black scorched earth. What a powerful flame fluctuation! The divine condor's eyes twitched. It had absorbed the heavenly fire divine sparrow's blood essence. Logically speaking, it should not be afraid of the vermilion bird's flames. However, at that moment, the fluctuation of flames that Yiguchen was emitting made it slightly fearful. Just like the Tang snake totem, the vermilion bird's spirit's fluctuation alarmed many barbarians. Return. Yiguchen controlled the vermilion bird's spirit and returned it to his body. At the same time, the vermilion bird totem on Yiguchen's five-colored golden core continued to release vigorous vermilion bird fire to refine Yiguchen's body. Yiguchen sat cross-legged while bathed in flames. It was as if he was trying to create a golden body in the fire. He immediately summoned the half-transformed flawless Vajra body. His skin, which was slightly greenish gold, was burning with the vermilion bird fire and emitted a green light. Break! Yiguchen opened his eyes. His eyes were like crimson glass, emitting flames. His body was like true gold in the fire. It was being refined and finally transformed. Boom! Yiguchen's body shone brightly. The flawless diamond body, which had been transformed by 50%, finally completed its transformation. Feeling the perfection of his body, Yiguchen smiled faintly. He clenched his fist and punched out. The air seemed to be compressed to the extreme, and an ear-piercing roar erupted. A ball of air blasted through the air and smashed the ground in the distance. Little Ye's body is too strong. The divine condor was speechless. Feeling the powerful energy surging in his body, Yiguchen's eyes shone brightly. After breaking through to the flawless diamond body, Yiguchen's physical strength had increased several times. Moreover, with his current physical strength, he could fight against a dermic weapon with his bare hands. If this news were to spread, even the barbarians, who were known for their body refinement, would be ashamed. After completely mastering the flawless diamond body, Yiguchen also had some understanding of the next realm. The next realm after the flawless diamond body was the indestructible diamond body. The flawless diamond body was greenish gold. The indestructible diamond body was purplish gold. Yiguchen thought that if he could really master the purplish diamond indestructible diamond body, his physical strength would be able to fight against a heavenly tribulation weapon. That was a powerful weapon that could not be found in the entire Saint Origin dynasty. At the same time, the indestructible diamond body also had a strong recovery ability. Although it could not be reborn from a drop of blood, it could recover quickly as long as it was not seriously injured. This was the essence of the indestructible diamond body. Of course, Yiguchen knew that it was more difficult to master the indestructible diamond body than the flawless diamond body. The physical body even had to be baptized by the heavenly tribulation. That was not something Yiguchen could do now. I'm biting off more than I can chew. Yiguchen shook his head with a faint smile and stopped thinking about it. At the same time, he found that his understanding of the fire sword essence had deepened. He, who had already comprehended the embryonic form of the fire sword essence, seemed to have some understanding now. At this moment, Yiguchen sensed something and took out a jade slip from his origin ring. The smile on Yiguchen's face disappeared after he scanned through them. His expression turned cold. Zhou Tong, you've gone too far. Yiguchen's tone was cold. He did not expect that Zhou Tong would target the people of the inner yard instead of encircling him. Without any hesitation, Yiguchen brought the divine eagle to the valley where Chu Qingqi had sent the message. However, halfway there, Yiguchen's footsteps suddenly stopped. Four masked men suddenly appeared and blocked Yiguchen's path. We've searched high and low for you, only to find you by chance. We knew you would go to save the people of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. We've finally found you. The leader of the four masked men spoke in an old and hoarse voice. You are. Yiguchen frowned as he felt a fatal threat. The pressure and aura emitted by the four masked men in front of him were all at the life and death threshold level. Chapter 493. In the ancient desolate forbidden zone, the seven major powers were fighting against the barbarian race geniuses. Logically speaking, it was impossible for life and death chamber experts to enter. That would break the balance. Moreover, there was a peerless array here. Even life and death chamber experts could not fully display their strength. It was because of this that both sides decided to let the younger generation fight to determine the victor. Now, there were 4 life and death chamber experts in front of Yiguchen. And it was obvious that the 4 of them were here for Yiguchen. They wanted to kill him. You were sent by Zhou Tong. Yiguchen frowned. He knew that Zhou Tong's methods were ruthless, but would he be so bold as to blatantly order 4 life and death chamber experts to kill him? Zhou Tong, it has nothing to do with him. You will die today. The black-clothed masked old man said with killing intent. It's not Zhou Tong. Yiguchen's eyes flickered. Now that he thought about it, it was indeed so. If Zhou Tong could send 4 life and death chamber experts, then he would not have needed to borrow the hands of Lei Jiuming and the rest to deal with him. Since it's not Zhou Tong, then you are from the Shinto family. Yiguchen's eyes flashed coldly. The masked old man's eyes were as cold as the stars in the sky. He did not reply, but said darkly, "You are going to die anyway. Why are you thinking so much?" Indeed, Yiguchen's eyes flashed with coldness. The Shinto family dared to risk universal condemnation and kill him at such a critical moment. You all better get out of the way. Yiguchen's words were filled with extreme coldness. Now, the people from the Sword Sect's forest of pagodas had been schemed against by Zhou Tong in the valley. They were being besieged by Lei Jiuming and the rest. If Yiguchen had arrived a little later, the entire inner sect might have been wiped out. However, at such a critical juncture, the Shinto family had actually interfered. This caused the killing intent in Yiguchen's heart to soar. Ha! What an arrogant junior. Do you know the situation you're in now? The masked old man felt as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. A divine soul realm warrior was actually telling the 4 life and death chamber warriors to get out of the way. Who gave him the courage? Yiguchen didn't say anything else. The origin ring on his finger flashed, and the blood hell sword with a fiendish aura fell into his hand. At the same time, he activated the heavenly demon general armor. The blood-red armor covered Yiguchen's body piece by piece. Eventually, it covered Yiguchen's entire body. The ferocious spikes were scarlet in color. It was as if Azura had been bathed in blood. An extremely powerful murderous aura turned into a blood mist that spread out in all directions. After killing Xue Lizhan, the blood prison sword and the heavenly demon general armor had absorbed his blood chi and recovered part of their power. At the same time, Yiguchen waved his hand again and a blood-red figure appeared. It was the blood cloud centipede. "Brother Condor, please," Yiguchen said in a low voice. Don't worry. Grandpa Condor hasn't exercised for a long time. This is a good opportunity to practice. The divine condor stopped on Yiguchen's shoulder and flapped its little wings. The divine condor's body was small and fluffy, so it was easy to overlook. However, there was no need to doubt its strength. Kill! Yiguchen didn't hold back at all. After all, he needed to deal with the 4 people in front of him as soon as possible so that he could rescue the inner courtyard. You guys be careful. Don't fail miserably. This kid is a little strange. The masked old man said to the other 3. Yiguchen, who was covered in blood-red armor, emitted a baleful aura that made the masked old man and the other experts feel a little apprehensive. Thinking back to the news that Yiguchen had killed a life and death chamber warrior, they didn't dare to lower their guard. Bang! Yiguchen directly activated the spirit-devouring secret art, and his aura skyrocketed to the 9 transformations. The first move he used was his ultimate move. Yama's sword swept out, and 100 feet-long blood-red sword Chi swept out. The blood cloud centipede's aura was also powerful. Without any fancy moves, it punched out, and the air was compressed to the extreme, creating a whistling sound. The divine condor also flapped its wings and found a life and death chamber warrior. Humph, ridiculous. The life and death chamber warrior sneered and sent a palm strike at the divine condor. Fuck, you dare to look down on Grandpa Condor? You're courting death. The divine condor screamed in a childish voice. It opened its beak and spat out a large ball of blazing flame. At the same time, its aura was also revealed. 5th rank demonic beast, how is this possible? The life and death chamber warrior was shocked. At the same level, demonic beasts were stronger than warriors. Although their strength was suppressed by the array, the divine condor's strength was still able to suppress a life and death chamber warrior. At the same time, the blood cloud centipede's strength was beyond their expectations. A blood cloud centipede could entangle 2 life and death chamber warriors at the same time, and this was under the condition that Yiguchin didn't use its full strength. Kid, you have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. The masked old man glanced around and his face sank. Even he didn't expect Yiguchin to have so many tricks up his sleeve. Not only did he have a powerful puppet, but he also had a 5th rank demonic beast. This was far beyond their expectations. But even so, you're still going to die. The masked old man charged at Yiguchin alone. After all, he was a life and death chamber warrior, and he was confident that he could kill Yiguchin alone. Yiguchin didn't say anything and directly attacked. The two's moves collided, and a huge shockwave instantly flattened the surroundings. With a bang, Yiguchin and the masked old man both retreated. How is this possible? The masked old man's face was full of disbelief. Yiguchin could actually fight him head-on. Yiguchin rejoiced in his heart when he felt the strong rebounding force coming from the sword. He could fight a life and death chamber warrior head-on without relying on the mad blood array in the sky demon general armor. Firstly, it was because of the peerless ominous array in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, which weakened the life and death chamber warrior's strength. Secondly, Yiguchin's flawless body had been completely cultivated, and his physical strength and toughness had increased by several folds. Thirdly, Yiguchin's cultivation base had also broken through a realm, and he had awakened the soaring snake and vermilion bird totems, which had greatly increased his strength. Because of these reasons, Yiguchin now had the ability to fight a life and death chamber warrior head-on. Today, who is the prey? Yiguchin's eyes were incomparably cold as he brandished his sword. Just as Yiguchin and the masked old man were fighting, the battle in the valley was also extremely intense. Yan Wushuang and the others were fighting Lei Jiuyo. Yan Wushuang directly faced Lei Jiuyo, Ji Ling, Li Lingxiao, and the other top disciples of the inner yard, while they faced the double-crowned king Yan Xuanji. As for Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the remaining inner yard elites, they were fighting barbarian race saint sons like Jin Zhangye. However, the hearts of the inner yard disciples were heavy. Because Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Xiaotian, and the other triple-crown kings were still on the sidelines. As time passed, the inner yard disciples gradually could not hold on any longer, and some of them were seriously injured. Why is Senior Brother Yi not here yet? Senior Brother Yi should be here soon. Everyone, hold on. Many inner yard disciples gritted their teeth and held on. However, Chu Qingqi's heart sank slightly. He had already sent a message to Yiguchin, and with Yiguchin's speed, he should be here soon. However, there was no trace of Yiguchin. It seems that Yiguchin is a coward. Lei Jiuyo said coldly. His main goal was to kill Yiguchin and avenge Lei Jiuming. Destroying the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was just a side goal. However, the main target had yet to appear. Far away in the valley, Zhou Tong frowned slightly and said to himself, "That's not right." With Yiguchin's character, he would come even if he had to go through a mountain of swords and a sea of flames. However, he has yet to appear. Zhou Tong was a little puzzled. This was beyond his expectations. If Yiguchen did not come, destroying the sword sect pagoda forest would be meaningless. Chapter 494. Time gradually passed. The valley was already filled with the smell of blood. There were already casualties among the inner yard disciples. Almost everyone was covered in blood. As for Yan Wushuang, her ice silk skirt armor was charred black. It was the mark left behind by Lei Jiuyo's strange lightning. After the collision, Yan Wushuang took a dozen steps back. Her chest rose and fell. There was a trace of blood flowing down from the corner of her mouth. It made Yan Wushuang feel a little sad. Where is the sword sect master who killed my brother? Where is he now? Is he a coward? Lei Jiuyo shouted coldly. If he couldn't kill Yiguchen, what was the point of destroying the sword sect pagoda forest? I thought he would have some courage after killing someone from the Fire Clan. I didn't expect him to be so disappointing. His fellow disciples are surrounded and he doesn't even dare to show up. Yan Xuanji sighed. He seemed a little disappointed. As they spoke, everyone in the inner yard was furious. In their hearts, Yiguchen was like Feng Manlu. He had become the benchmark and faith of the inner yard. They didn't allow outsiders to slander him. However, they couldn't refute. Because Yiguchen really didn't come. Senior Chu, what's going on? Have you informed Senior Yi? An inner yard disciple asked softly. Chu Qingqi looked solemn and nodded slightly. He guessed that Yiguchen had most likely encountered some trouble. After receiving Chu Qingqi's reply, many inner yard disciples looked a little upset. They naturally wouldn't complain about Yiguchen. They didn't have the right to do so. However, Yiguchen's absence would shake the confidence of these inner yard disciples. TSK, if Yiguchen doesn't come today, his reputation will be damaged. After all, the sword sect pagoda forest was attacked because Yiguchen killed Lei Jiuming and the others. Queen Yuan she stood outside the valley and commented as if she was watching a show. She couldn't hide the ridicule in her voice. If Yiguchen doesn't come, then the inner court of the sword sect's forest of pagodas will be destroyed today. At that time, he'll be the only one left. Let's see how arrogant he can be. Ren Tingting had a gloating expression as well. Just like Princess Yuan she had been defeated by Yiguchen. That was why she held a grudge against him. Yet now, the sword sect's tower forest had been encircled and annihilated, yet not only did they not have the slightest intention to lend a hand, they were even more willing to watch from the sidelines. The same went for the black and white impermanents and the others. Inside the valley, the situation was extremely tragic. After discovering that Yiguchen did not come, Lei Jiuming and the others attacked even more heavily. Strange lightning coiled around his body, and his aura was shocking. Even Yan Wushuang was shaken to the point of being forced to take a few steps back. Boom! After another collision, Yan Wushuang's delicate figure was pushed back again. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and her delicate face became extremely pale. Shuang. Not far away, Ji Ling saw this and her expression changed. You should take care of yourself first. Yan Xuanji was holding a wind and fire dual attribute totem. He waved one hand, and the flames surged. Ji Ling used her genuine qi to resist, but she was also pushed back and spat out a mouthful of blood. The other inner court disciples were in the same situation. It could be said that the entire inner court disciples were miserable in this battle. Almost all of them were severely injured. What made these disciples even more desperate was that they could not see any hope at all. The figure that they had been waiting for did not come. Boom! After another collision, Yan Wushuang's delicate figure was sent flying. She held a long sword in her hand to support her body. Her sharp chin was already covered in blood. She angrily rebuked those who are watching from the sidelines. Although there are conflicts between the seven forces, our enemy this time is the barbarian race. Are you really going to stand by and do nothing? Yan Wushuang's beautiful face was cold. She knew that if the other forces were surrounded, even if they had a grudge against the sword-sex forest of pagodas, Yan Wushuang would still help them out for the sake of the overall situation. But now, the black and white impermanents, Princess Yuan Shi, Ren Tingting, and the others were not willing to help even if they were standing outside the valley. Instead, they were gloating. This made Yan Wushuang feel sad in her heart. However, Princess Yuan Shi, Ren Tingting, and the others only sneered and were still indifferent. It was naturally impossible for them to lend a hand just because of Yan Wushuang's words. To be honest, they were already being merciful by not hitting her when she was down. How naive. Zhou Tong smiled faintly. At this juncture, did Yan Wushuang still expect them to help? It's useless. No one can save you. If you want to blame someone, blame Yi Guqin for killing my brother. I'll kill you first and collect some interest. Lei Jiuyo did not have the slightest intention of showing any mercy. He struck out with one hand. The strong strange thunder turned into a thunder claw and grabbed at Yan Wushuang's head. Yan Wushuang gritted her teeth. It was difficult for her to dodge this attack. Shuang, Senior Sister Yan. Ji Ling, Chu Qingqi, and the others in the inner court saw this and cried out in alarm. Yan Wushuang was the daughter of the sect master and a genius. If she died, it would be an irreparable loss for the sword-sex forest of pagodas. Yan Wushuang's expression was unusually calm when she felt that she was about to die. She did not resent Yi Guqin for not coming. She only felt that it was a pity. She wanted to ease her relationship with Yi Guqin. After all, Yan Wushuang's attitude towards Yi Guqin was a little too much. Perhaps Yi Guqin did not care, but Yan Wushuang did. Unfortunately, I can't do it. Yan Wushuang bit her lips. Just as she was about to die, a black figure descended from the sky and blocked in front of Yan Wushuang. He collided with Lei Jiuyo's attack. The sudden appearance of this scene caused everyone inside and outside the valley to reveal a shocked expression. Yi Guqin has shown up. Has the sword sect finally shown up? Some people cried out in surprise. Yi Guqin. Lei Jiuyo's expression was extremely solemn when he felt the rebounding force from the collision. The person in front of him was definitely not weaker than him. Even among the younger generation of the barbarian tribe, there were very few experts with such strength. Yi Guqin. Yan Wushuang's beautiful eyes, which were originally filled with despair, suddenly lit up as she looked at the person in front of her. However, in an instant, her eyes were filled with surprise. Although the person in front of her was also dressed in black, his back was different from Yi Guqin's. The other disciples of the inner yard were also extremely excited. However, when they saw the person clearly, their smiles froze and turned into confusion. No, he is not Yi Guqin. Outside the valley, Queen Yuan Shi, Ren Tingting, and the others looked carefully and shook their heads. However, they were also very confused. The black-clothed young man had an extraordinary aura. Among the 7 forces, there were no heaven's favorites that matched his appearance. It's him. Zhou Tong's expression changed. He had seen the black-clothed young man in House Yunyan before. He had even forced LV Qinghan to retreat with one palm. The young man who appeared was none other than Su Moyan. Chapter 495. Su Moyan was dressed in black. He stood with his hands behind his back with a slender figure and cold facial features. He did not say a word. Just by standing there, he exuded the aura of a peerless genius. You're not Yi Guqin. Lei Jiuyo's tone was cold. He originally thought that the person who appeared was Yi Guqin, so he could take revenge. However, the person who appeared now was unrelated. Every injustice has its perpetrator. If you want to deal with Yi Guqin, you can go straight to him. What kind of ability is bullying a woman? Su Moyan's tone was cold. What's your relationship with Yi Guqin? Lei Jiuyo asked coldly. Unrelated, Su Moyan said. If you're unrelated, then get out of the way. Lei Jiuyo was a little impatient. In this situation, there was still someone who stood up for them. Who is that person? He doesn't seem to be a genius from the 7 major forces. Many onlookers were also puzzled. Ren Tingting was a little unwilling. She was about to see the destruction of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest, but someone meddled and intervened halfway. This person is definitely related to Yiguchen. I just don't know what their relationship is. Zhou Tong frowned slightly. The sudden appearance of such a variable made Zhou Tong's face turn solemn. Moreover, this black-clothed youth was definitely powerful. He might even be able to change the situation. Since you're willing to meddle, then die with the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Lei Jiuyo did not say anything else and directly attacked. Su Moyan's expression was extremely calm. He also attacked, and the two of them fought. Some of the disciples in the inner yard were puzzled. However, after seeing Su Moyan's strength, they also smiled in relief. There was still hope for them to survive. Yan Wushuang, Chu Qingqi, and the others were puzzled. Did this black-clothed youth really have nothing to do with Yiguchen? Would there really be such a selfless person who would help? They did not dare to disagree. Chu Qingqi even suspected that this black-clothed youth was called by Yiguchen to help. However, with Su Moyan's help, the pressure on Yan Wushuang was indeed greatly reduced. Just as everyone in the inner yard was feeling hopeful, the Golden Sun Saint and Feng Xiaotian stood out at the same time. An interesting person has appeared. It seems that I can exercise my muscles and bones. The Golden Sun Saint's son was dressed in luxurious clothes. He had a handsome face and was smiling. Are you going to compete with me again? Feng Xiaotian asked. When the 2 Triple Crown champions attacked, it was like a dark cloud that covered the people of the Sword Sect's forest of towers. Seeing this, Su Moyan's expression did not change, as if he was used to seeing great storms. He coldly shouted, "Mo Kuang, unsheath." A long sword as black as ink appeared in Su Moyan's hand. The sword vibrated with unparalleled power. It was also a supreme-grade mystical rune divine weapon. Su Moyan was fighting Lei Jiuyo and the Golden Sun Saint Sun alone. Of course, when the 3 of them made their moves, they were mostly probing and did not directly use their ultimate moves. Yan Wushuang, who possessed the Wind Sword essence, fought against Feng Xiaotian. Su Moyan's strength shocked everyone. However, they could also see that overall, the barbarians still had the upper hand. In the end, with Su Moyan's strength, he could escape unscathed. However, the people of the inner yard would not be so lucky. It was inevitable that they would suffer heavy losses. Just as the fierce battle in the valley was in full swing, Yiguchen was also engaged in a bloody battle with the masked old man and the others. Damn it! If it wasn't for the formation in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, it would be easy for me to kill him. The masked old man roared in his heart. To him, this battle could be said to be incomparably sullen. He could not fully unleash his strength at the life and death threshold and was unable to make full use of it. On the other hand, Yiguchen could fully unleash his strength. Coupled with the strong defensive power of the Sky Demon General Armor, the power of his true Qi attacks would be reduced by at least 50%. In addition, Yiguchen had completely transformed into a flawless body. The masked old man's attacks could not cause any fatal damage to Yiguchen. Attacking me in the ancient desolate forbidden zone is the biggest mistake you have ever made. Yiguchen's true Qi exploded from his body. Under the Sky Demon General Armor's transformation, the golden true Qi turned into a bewitching blood-red color. It made Yiguchen look like a demon from hell. The inner yard might not be able to hold on any longer. I have to end this quickly. Yiguchen thought to himself. He held the bloody hell sword and injected true Qi into it. The sharp blade emitted a blood-red glow. At the same time, he activated the splitting edge array, making the bloody hell sword even sharper. With a swing of the sword, blood-red sword Qi spread, and scarlet-red spider lilies bloomed in the sky. This was the 6th move of the god-slaying sword art, Permitha. What kind of sword move is this? The masked old man's expression changed when he saw this. Even in his Shinto family, there was no such powerful martial art. Permitha's move had reached the level of a top-grade king-level sword art. In a hurry, the masked old man also used a powerful move to resist. He struck out with his palm, which turned into a golden palm print. Wherever the palm print passed, rocks would explode. Boom! When the two collided, a shockwave shook the heavens and earth. Yiguchin and the masked old man were both blasted back. However, Yiguchin had the Sky Demon General armor to protect his body. In addition to his flawless body, he was only slightly injured. However, the masked old man's injuries were more serious than Yiguchin's. He looked at the others again. The divine condor was suppressing a life and death chamber expert, causing him to be in a precarious situation. As for the blood cloud centipede, it was also suppressing the other two. Is there really no way to kill Yiguchin today? The masked old man felt a chill in his heart. Although they did not say that they were from the Shinto family, Yiguchin must have guessed it. If they could not kill Yiguchin this time, the Shinto family would suffer a devastating blow when Yiguchin spread the news. Yiguchin must die. The masked old man made up his mind and swallowed an elixir. With a loud boom, the masked old man's chi erupted once again. Although he was suppressed by the array, his strength still increased by a notch. 5 Mountain Divine Palm. The masked old man struck out with his palm. It was as if 5 mountains were pressing down on him, bringing with it an extreme pressure. When this move was used, even an elite with a 9th transformation of the divine soul would explode under this palm. Yiguchin also did not hold back. 360 golden sword veins appeared in his body, causing the blood hell sword chi to increase dramatically. Behind Yiguchin, a pair of sword wings also extended. 10,000 God tribulation, heaven and earth annihilation. The sword seemed to pierce through the void. The sharp sword chi condensed at a single point, as if it could destroy everything. How is this possible? The masked old man roared. The 10,000 God tribulation's power made an elite like him feel a sense of despair. Boom! Violent chi fluctuations spread out. In the smoke and dust, the masked old man's body flew out like a kite with a broken string. The black cloth on his face fell off, revealing an old face. It was the Shinto family's Grand Elder. Grand Elder. When the other three saw this, their expressions changed drastically. They were in extreme disbelief. The Grand Elder, who was at the life and death threshold, had been killed by Yiguchin just like that. Hee, provoking us is your foolishness. The divine condor also exerted its strength. Flames spewed out, burning another person to death. Yiguchin's mind moved, and he also activated more of the blood cloud centipede's power. Its fist punched out, ending the lives of 2 people. Chapter 496. Puchi. The Shinto family's great elder collapsed to the ground, spitting out a large mouthful of blood mixed with his shattered organs. A huge bloody hole appeared in his chest, caused by the 10,000 God tribulation. He glanced at the other 3 from the corner of his eyes. They had all died at the hands of the divine condor and the blood cloud centipede. This made the great elder's eyes pop out of their sockets. This time, not only did their Shinto family fail to kill Yiguchin, they had also suffered a double loss. Including him, the 4 life and death hall elders would die here. And the greater danger was that if Yiguchin did not die, he would leak the news. The entire Shinto family would become the target of condemnation, and they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Even Shinto Zhan would not have expected such an outcome. Yiguchin walked in front of the great elder. At this moment, the great elder was at death's door, and his life was like a candle in the wind. Spare my life. The great elder's mouth was filled with blood as he begged for mercy. He had never thought that there would be a day when he would beg for mercy from a junior at the divine soul realm with his cultivation level. However, Yi Guqin's various trump cards had indeed far exceeded their expectations. Yi Guqin did not speak further. He took out a jade scroll and recorded the Great Elder's face. In the future, this would be the last straw that broke the Shinto family's back. No. The Great Elder's eyes were filled with despair as endless regret rose in his heart. At the same time, there was an extreme hatred. This hatred was not towards Yi Guqin, but towards Shinto Zhan. If not for Shinto Zhan's orders, they would not have died, and Yi Guqin would not have gotten hold of them. It could be said that because of Shinto Zhan's wrong decision, the entire Shinto family had been dragged into the abyss. Yi Guqin did not show any mercy as he ended the Great Elder's life with a single sword strike. This time, it could only be said that Yi Guqin's luck was good. He had taken advantage of the right time, place, and people. If these 4 people had attacked outside the ancient desolate forbidden zone, Yi Guqin would have definitely been in fatal danger. Of course, outside the ancient desolate forbidden zone, there were experts from the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest standing guard, so they did not dare to attack. Yi Guqin recalled the blood cloud puppet and discovered that the demonic cloud blood crystal's energy had decreased significantly. Once all of its energy was used up, the blood cloud centipede would be useless. Without any hesitation, Yi Guqin prepared to head to the valley. The 4 experts of the Shinto family had delayed Yi Guqin for quite a bit of time. The situation in the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest was probably extremely dangerous. However, Yi Guqin thought about it from another perspective. There must be many barbarian tribe members gathered in that valley. Even if he were to head there like this, he might not be able to bring everyone out safely. Should I use the power of the primogenitor totem? Yi Guqin pondered. The progenitor totem was even rarer and more precious than the supreme totem. It even had the ability to suppress and weaken the supreme totem. If Yi Guqin brought out the ancestral totem, he might be able to restrain the barbarians. However, if he were to bring out the ancestral totem, then Yi Guqin definitely could not expose his identity as a sword master. Otherwise, what awaited him would be the endless pursuit of all the experts of the barbarian tribe. After that, it would be impossible for Yi Guqin to sneak into the 5 Elements Temple. This heavenly demon general armor is a very good disguise. Yi Guqin was still wearing the heavenly demon general armor. His face was also covered with a blood-colored mask. Hence, from the outside, it was impossible to expose Yi Guqin's identity. Furthermore, this was the second time Yi Guqin had used the heavenly demon general armor and blood hell sword. The first time was when he was fighting Xue Lizhan. Hence, other than the dead Xue Lizhan and the 4 dead people in front of him, no one knew that under the heavenly demon general armor was Yi Guqin. Brother Condor, please do not expose your identity later. Yi Guqin exhorted. Although the divine condor was puzzled, it did not say anything. Moreover, it did not need to disguise its current appearance at all. It was too different from its previous appearance. Let's go. Yi Guqin activated the power of the vermilion bird totem, and a pair of flaming wings spread out from his back. Although Yi Guqin had used the vermilion bird wings before, under the cover of the aura of the heavenly demon general armor, the vermilion bird wings turned into a beautiful red color. Yi Guqin's wings shook, and his body shot out like an arrow. At this moment, in the valley, the battle was getting more and more intense. Although the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest would not be defeated immediately with Su Moyan's intervention, it would not be able to hold on for too long. After all, Su Moyan was only one person, and the barbarian tribe still had the absolute advantage. Let's end this quickly and directly destroy the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Let's see if Yi Guqin will appear again. Lei Jiuyo said coldly. Then let me deal with you. The Golden Sun Saint made a move and entangled Su Moyan. Su Moyan's eyes flashed. He swept his Mo Kuang, and sword chi spread out like ink. Even the Triple Crown King, the Golden Sun Saint, looked slightly serious. Not only was Su Moyan's strength outstanding, but his methods were also better than the ordinary geniuses of the 7 major forces. However, the Golden Sun Saint could still temporarily entangle Su Moyan with his full strength. Lei Jiuyo, on the other hand, started to attack the people of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Every time he attacked, a disciple of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest would be seriously injured and vomit blood. Yan Wushuang's face turned pale. However, she was restrained by Feng Xiaotian and could not do anything. In an instant, the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest suffered a great number of casualties. Where is Senior Brother Yi now? Why hasn't Senior Brother Yi appeared yet? Many inner yard disciples were screaming in their hearts. The person they respected and admired the most still had not appeared. Although the inner yard disciples would not resent him, they were still somewhat disappointed. It seems that the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest is doomed today. Even with the help of the black-clothed youth, it would be good enough if he could protect 1 or 2 people at most. Queen Yuan Shi and the others chuckled. Ren Tingting and the others were the same. After all, they were just there to watch the show. Just as the inner yard disciples were filled with despair, a figure broke through the air from afar. A pair of crimson fire wings streaked across the sky and set off a shocking heat wave. Who is it? Whether it was the people of the 7 major forces or the barbarian tribe, they all looked over. A figure smashed into the valley like a flaming meteor. With a loud bang, smoke and dust scattered. The fierce battle also temporarily stopped because of this. Could it be? The inner yard disciples' hearts were filled with hope again. However, what appeared in front of everyone was a figure covered in ferocious blood-red armor. He held a blood-red long sword and was surrounded by an extremely fierce aura. Is it Senior Brother Yi? Some inner yard disciples were puzzled. Yan Wushuang, Chu Qingqi, and the others were also very uncertain. Su Moyan's eyes were slightly solemn. He felt a faint threat from the figure in blood-red armor. This feeling was very new to him. However, it was also because of this that Su Moyan was not sure that this person was Yi Guqin. This was because the last time he met Yi Guqin was in Lotus Village. At that time, Yi Guqin was a little weak to Su Moyan. Just as everyone in the inner yard was hoping that this figure was Yi Guqin. An extremely vigorous and terrifying totem power suddenly burst out from his body. It was accompanied by a strong pressure that poured out in all directions. At this moment, everyone in the inner yard, including Yan Wushuang and the others, were completely pale. It's the barbarian tribe Holy Sun. Chapter 497. The hearts of all the inner yard disciples present sank to the bottom of the valley. The man who had suddenly appeared was clad in blood-red armor and held a blood-red sword in his hand. He was like an Asura who had emerged from the blood, making people shudder with fear. Everyone in the inner yard hoped that the figure in blood-red armor was Yi Guqin. But the terrifying totem power that spread out told them that the man was not Yi Guqin. Although the barbarian tribe was not necessarily the only ones who could cultivate totem power, outsiders could only cultivate it to a very shallow level at most. The vigorous totem power that the figure in blood-red armor exuded was something that only the holy son of the barbarian tribe who had cultivated the supreme totem power could achieve. So when the aura spread out, the people in the inner yard immediately denied Yi Guqin's identity. Now, another holy son of the barbarian tribe had appeared. This undoubtedly gave the barbarian tribe, who already had a chance of winning, an even more overwhelming advantage. TSK, it seems that even God is unwilling to let the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest go. Ren Tingting, who was watching from outside the valley, had a pleasant smile on her face. The more miserable the inner yard was, the more pleased she was. I really want to see the look of despair on Yi Guqin's face when he learns that the inner yard has been destroyed. Queen Yuan Shi's position was the same. The humiliation that Yi Guqin had brought to them could not be erased in their lifetime. They could not defeat Yi Guqin, so they could only take some comfort in it. Which tribe are you from? Lei Jiuyo sized him up coldly. The barbarian tribe was a little confused because the power that Yi Guqin exuded was indeed at the level of a holy sun, but they had never seen this figure in blood-red armor in all the tribes of the barbarian tribe. Yi Guqin, under the mask, did not say a word. The casualties of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest made him angry. Without saying too much, Yiguchen directly drew his sword. Vigorous totem power poured into the bloody hell sword, swallowing and spitting out a sharp edge. Yiguchen did not use any swordsmanship or martial arts that would expose his identity. He simply slashed out with his sword. However, with Yiguchen's current strength and his flawless body, even without any sword moves, the power of this sword was still extremely strong. Seeing this, Lei Jiuyo's face changed. The rest of the barbarians, such as the Golden Sun Saint, Yan Xuanji, Feng Xiaotian, and the others, were also shocked. This holy son of the barbarian race, who had appeared out of nowhere, was attacking them. This dramatic scene caused the expressions of everyone inside and outside the valley to change. Because it was too out of their expectations. Who are you? Lei Jiuyo also took out his weapon. It was a long silver rod. The surface of the rod was covered with thunder patterns. When it was swung, thunder would be generated. The blood sword and thunder cudgel collided with each other, creating a powerful shockwave. Lei Jiuyo's expression changed again. That was because he felt the terrifying rebounding force that came from the rod. It was like a wave as it smashed into his body. Even the bones in his arm were unable to bear the heavy burden as they emitted cracking sounds. Thud! 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 Lei Jiuyo took 3 steps back. With every step he took, there would be a huge tremor, creating a huge pit and spreading cracks. All the barbarians present were shocked. Lei Jiuyo was actually pushed back in terms of physical strength. The Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others also looked at Yiguchen solemnly. Although Lei Jiuyo looked thin and did not have much muscle, he had the bloodline of the Thunder God. His physical strength was second only to 4 Crown King and a few others in the barbarian race. However, the figure in crimson armor that appeared in front of them had actually pushed Lei Jiuyo back. How strong was his physical strength? Which tribe are you from? How dare you attack an internal member of the barbarian race? The Golden Sun Saint frowned. On the other side, the expressions of Yan Wushuang and the others were extremely interesting. Their emotions were like a roller coaster. Originally, they had sunk to the bottom of the valley. But now, the actions of the figure in crimson armor had confused them. If that person had not used the power of the totem, I would have thought that he was Brother Yi. Chu Qingqi smiled bitterly. Although he knew that Yiguchen had also used the power of the totem, he was definitely not as strong as the person in front of him. The two were not on the same level. No matter what, this person does not seem to have any ill intentions towards us. Perhaps he has a grudge against Lei Jiuyo and the others. Yan Wushuang secretly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. However, a faint disappointment still flashed across her beautiful eyes. That person did not come in the end. The atmosphere in the valley was strange. The crimson armor figure that Yiguchen had transformed into had suddenly appeared and used the power of the totem to deal with the barbarian race. This made the faces of Ren Tingting and the others turn ugly. Who is this person? Is he Yiguchen? But this kind of totem power is at least of the supreme totem level. Yiguchen definitely does not have the supreme totem. Zhou Tong's face was gloomy. His plan was originally flawless. Even if Yiguchen did not come, he could destroy the inner yard and weaken Yiguchen's strength. But the appearance of Su Moyan and the crimson armor figure had completely ruined Zhou Tong's plan. Let's attack together. Lei Jiuyo shouted coldly and no longer held back. Feng Xiaotian, the Golden Sun Saint Sun, Yan Xuanji, and the others also restrained themselves and were ready to attack with all their might. In addition, Jin Zhanlia and the other barbarian race saints were also serious. They all summoned their own supreme totems. Numerous totem spirits appeared in the air, roaring and roaring. Their momentum was terrifying. Everyone, be careful. Yan Wushuang held the sword in her hand tightly, her palms sweating. She knew that the barbarian race and the others were really ready to kill. Even with the protection of Su Moyan and the Crimson Armor figure, the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest would suffer heavy losses. However, a deep and hoarse voice came from under the Crimson Armor figure's mask. "All of you, step back." "What?" Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others were stunned. Is the Crimson Armor figure going to fight against all the barbarian race alone? How is that possible? Outside the valley, many people were surprised when they heard the Crimson Armor figure's words. If the Crimson Armor figure had not used the power of the totem, they would have thought that the person under the armor was Yiguchen. "No matter which tribe saint you are, after we capture you, we will make you pay." Lei Jiuyo and the others sneered when they heard the Crimson Armor figure's words. Under the Crimson Armor, Yiguchen heaved a sigh of relief and calmed down. He directly activated the Tang Snake totem in his 5-colored golden core. In an instant, an extremely strong power of the water totem spread out like a storm and swept across all directions. Along with the violent fluctuation, a giant snake with wings on its back suddenly jumped out of Yiguchen's body. Its body expanded in the air and it hissed at the sky, shaking the 9 heavens. It was the water ancestor spirit, the Tang Snake. That is, the water ancestor totem, the Tang Snake. At this moment, many barbarian race people exclaimed and could not believe their eyes. At the same time, they thought of the strange pressure from before and connected the dots. The result was clear in their hearts. The Crimson Armor figure in front of them was the owner of the ancestor totem. Lei Jiuyo and the others were shocked. However, before the barbarian race people could recover from their shock, Yiguchen activated the Vermilion Bird totem again. With a loud chirp, red flames swept out and burned the sky. A vermilion bird flapped its wings and flew out. Its wings were like clouds in the sky. The fire ancestor spirit, the Vermilion Bird. The Tang Snake and the Vermilion Bird, the 2 ancestor spirits, screamed and roared. Yiguchen held the blood prison sword in his hand and wore the heavenly demon general armor. With the support of the 2 ancestor spirits, he was like a king who had descended to the world. Chapter 498. Everyone was shocked by the scene before them. Under the support of the 2 progenitor spirits, the figure holding the blood sword and wearing blood armor looked like the divine king of water and fire. His aura was shocking. At that moment, the sky seemed to be divided into 2. Half of it was surging with waves and the other half was burning with flames. 2 progenitor totems, how is this possible? The barbarian tribe people were completely stunned. Even Lei Jiuyo, Golden Sun Saint Sun, and the other top talents of the barbarian tribe were stunned. The progenitor totems were extremely rare in the barbarian tribe and had a special status. In the barbarian tribe, anyone who had awakened the supreme totem would have a respectable status. If someone had awakened the ancestral totem, even if they were a slave, their status would be elevated to the level of the tribe leader. They could be said to be a core figure. However, the progenitor totems had not appeared among the barbarian tribe saints for a long time. Even the quadruple crown king, Tuoba Shang, had only awakened 4 supreme totems. However, the person in front of them had awakened 2 progenitor totems. Double crown king of the progenitor totems, oh my god. Jin Zhanlia sighed. On the other hand, Zhou Tong and the rest of the people in the inner yard were completely sure that the person in front of them was not Yiguchen. How could a person who had 2 progenitor totems not be from the barbarian tribe? Just as Yiguchen took out the 2 totems, an extremely strong pressure spread out with a loud bang. When the force spread out, the progenitor totems summoned by the barbarian tribe saints seemed to be suppressed and their powers were reduced by half. So powerful! Many barbarian tribe saints exclaimed. Other than Lei Jiuyo, Yan Xuanji, Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Xiaotian, and a few others, the rest of the barbarian tribe saints were greatly suppressed. Even the few of them felt that their supreme totems were trembling slightly as if they were facing the king of the totems. Which tribe are you from? Since you have the progenitor totems, you are definitely not a nobody. Lei Jiuyo's eyes were unprecedentedly serious. If the barbarian tribe knew that the owner of the progenitor totems had appeared, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Do you still want to fight? Yiguchin asked coldly in a low and hoarse voice. So what if it is the primogenitor totem? Let me have a taste of it. Lei Jiuyo was the unparalleled holy son of the lightning tribe, and it was impossible for him to retreat. He held the thunder staff in his hand, and the supreme totem in his body bloomed with divine light. The power of thunder surged all over his body, and he rose into the air, turning into a terrifying beast of thunder. It was Lei Jiuyo's supreme totem, the sky-devouring thunder beast. The sky-devouring thunder beast roared, resisting the pressure of the two progenitor totems. Although the vermilion bird and soaring snake totems were not of the lightning attribute, Lei Jiuyo still felt that his totems were greatly suppressed. Yiguchin struck as well. Together with the two primogenitor spirits, he clashed with Lei Jiuyo. The rest of the holy princes also moved into action, fighting with Su Moyan, Yan Wushuang, and the others. However, as the battle unfolded, the people watching from outside the valley could clearly feel that the fighting strength of the brute race had plummeted by half under the suppression of the ancestral totem. Thunder of the ninth heaven. Lei Jiuyo swung his staff 9 times consecutively. Every strike seemed to contain the power of thunder that could shake the heavens and earth. If it had been under normal circumstances, the 9 strikes would have been extremely powerful when they were stacked together. However, under the suppression of the primogenitor spirits, the power of the sky-devouring thunder beast that he borrowed was greatly reduced. Hence, the power of the strikes was greatly reduced. Yiguchin held the blood hell sword in his hand. Although he did not use any sword moves, his swordsmanship had an explosive will that was as swift as fire. When the sword essence spread out, the surrounding people felt an extremely hot aura. It's sword essence! Someone exclaimed. What Yiguchin had displayed was the fire sword essence. Previously, Yiguchin had already comprehended the fledgling form of the fire sword essence. Now that he had completely awakened the vermilion bird totem, it was natural for him to comprehend it directly. Moreover, the fire sword essence was only at the level of an ordinary sword essence. For Yiguchin, who had comprehended 2 supreme sword essences, it was not particularly difficult for him to comprehend an ordinary sword essence. The raging fire sword essence spread out and collided with Lei Jiuyo's move. In an instant, there was a burst of flames and thunder. There was a loud bang and both of them retreated. However, Lei Jiuyo retreated more. Humph! Lei Jiuyo let out a muffled groan. His eyes were extremely gloomy. The rest of the barbarian tribesmen were also greatly suppressed. Golden Sun Saint and the rest had the intention to retreat. This was because they did not have any grudges against Yiguchin. They just wanted to see the sword master. Since Yiguchin did not come, there was no need for them to fight to the death. Lei Jiuyo, let's leave first, Golden Sun Saint said. Feng Xiaotian also wanted to retreat. This was because they were too aggrieved. With the suppression of the primogenitor totem, they could not fully unleash their strength. Lei Jiuyo also wanted to retreat, but he was unwilling to give up. At this moment, he suddenly saw the little red bird on the shoulder of the figure in crimson armor suddenly spread its wings, and the aura of a rank 5 demonic beast spread out. It's a rank 5 demonic beast. Retreat! Golden Sun Saint and the rest saw this and their faces changed. They were no longer as calm as before. They did not care about Lei Jiuyo and the rest and retreated directly. They had not entered the barren ancient fighting ring and naturally did not want to waste their energy here. A rank 5 demonic beast was not easy to deal with. Damn it! Lei Jiuyo cursed in his heart and retreated directly. Yiguchin's eyes were cold and sharp. He indeed wanted to kill them. Together with the divine eagle, he attacked again. Lei Jiuyo and the rest retreated directly, but they still suffered a blow from Yiguchin and the divine eagle. With a spurt, Lei Jiuyo, Yan Xuanji, and the rest spat out a mouthful of blood and took the opportunity to leave. No matter which tribe you are from, Lei Jiuyo will remember what happened today. Outside the valley, Zhou Tong looked extremely gloomy as he watched the barbarians leave in a hurry. The plan has failed. It seems that I need to think about it in the long run. I need to improve my strength first, Zhou Tong thought to himself and left quietly. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed and he turned to look outside the valley. They ran pretty fast. Yi Guqin's face was cold. But he also saw black and white impermanence, Queen Yuan Shi, Ren Tingting, and the rest. In the next moment, Yi Guqin's body flashed and he rushed directly toward them. What are you doing? Queen Yuan Shi and the rest were shocked. Yi Guqin did not say a word, but his heart was cold. These people did have a grudge against him, but this trip to the barren ancient forbidden zone was related to the two camps. These people would rather stand here and watch the people of the inner yard die than do anything. Not only that, they even looked relaxed and happy, as if they were watching a show. Yi Guqin held the blood hell sword and slapped Queen Yuan Shi's face with the flat of the sword. Queen Yuan Shi wanted to stop it, but how could she stop Yi Guqin? With the suppression of the ancestor's spirit, Queen Yuan Shi could not fight back at all. With a slap, Queen Yuan Shi was sent flying. Her beautiful face was bruised and several of her teeth fell out. She fell hard to the ground. You're courting death. Queen Yuan Shi screamed, her eyes full of hatred. Besides Yi Guqin, this was the second person to humiliate her like this. Yi Guqin did not stop. Fang Chen, Mo Lengyue, and Ren Tingting were also sent flying. They spat out blood and lost their teeth. Even Xian Feng and Xian Dai could not escape. They were no match for Yi Guqin now. In the end, all the spectators had bruised cheeks and blood at the corners of their mouths. They were not killed because they were still useful in the barren ancient fighting ring. In the inner yard, Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the rest were stunned. The geniuses of the seven factions could not fight back at all in front of the crimson-armored figure. However, this person was too kind to them. If it were not for the ancestor totem, Yan Wushuang would have thought that the person was Yi Guqin. However, Yan Wushuang was disappointed when she thought of this. Not only her, but many of the inner yard disciples who were covered in blood felt the same way. From the beginning to the end, Yi Guqin, whom they had been looking forward to, had never arrived. This was a great blow to the sword sect's reputation. Chapter 499. After dealing with the barbarian tribe and teaching Princess Yuan Shi and the others a lesson, Yi Guqin was ready to leave. Thank you for saving me. Yan Wushuang clenched her teeth and took a step forward with her slender legs. Until now, Yan Wushuang still did not know which side this crimson-armored figure was on. However, since he used the power of the primogenitor totem, he was most likely from the barbarian tribe. Therefore, Yan Wushuang had a complicated look on her face. After all, she was saved by someone from the barbarian tribe. Yi Guqin nodded and did not explain anything. His current identity could not be exposed, even in the inner yard. After all, there were too many people around and the consequences would be unpredictable. Behind Yi Guqin, a pair of fiery red wings spread open. He flapped his wings and left. Su Moyan, who was not far away, saw this and his eyes flashed. He took out his eagle wings and followed closely behind. The deadlock of the inner yard was resolved. However, the people from the inner academy did not have much joy. Many of their faces revealed a faint disappointment. When she saw this, Yan Wushuang said, Yi Guqin was definitely delayed by something, and that's why he didn't come. However, as inner court disciples, all of you have to rely on yourselves first and not place all your hopes on others. Although Yan Wushuang was disappointed, she still had to boost the morale. Many disciples of the inner yard nodded and became more excited. Let's leave quickly, Ji Ling said. Then, Yan Wushuang and the others quickly passed through the valley and entered the depths of the ancient desolate forbidden zone. About 15 minutes after Yan Wushuang and the others left, two figures happened to arrive at the same time. One of them was a young man with gray hair. His body was wrapped in chains and his feet were bare. He was the quadruple crown king, Tuoba Shang. I'm too late. Tuoba Shang frowned. As he rushed over, he felt the pressure from the primogenitor totem again. Moreover, it was not just one but two. The double crown king of the primogenitor totem level. Interesting. Tuoba Shang's eyes shone brightly. It was as if Tuoba Shang was born to fight. In front of him, another person also appeared. It was a beautiful young woman. Her skin was the color of wheat, and she wore a colorful dress. There was a crescent moon hanging on her forehead, and below her beautiful eyes, there was a teardrop-shaped painting. She looked quite exotic and very eye-catching. Mulanue, you're here too. Tuoba Shang glanced at the girl. The girl's name was Mulanue. She had an extraordinary status and was the most outstanding member of the younger generation of the Mulan clan, one of the two great barbarian clans of the Five Elements Temple. Tuoba Shang, are you still not going to stop? Because of your Tuoba family's opinion, the war will start again and many tribes will be displaced. War will not benefit either side. Mulanue coldly said. What a foolish idea. Once I become the true Five-Crown King and completely control Five-Element Temple, I will destroy Saint Origin Dynasty and lead the Berserkers to South Horizon region to become the overlord of a region. Tuoba Shang's ambition was clear, and his tone was bold. He did not say anything else and left. Sigh, if this continues, the Berserkers will be weakened by the Tuoba family sooner or later. Unfortunately, my talent is not as good as Tuoba Shang's and I can't get the support of Five-Element Temple. Mulanue sighed. But which tribe does this Double Crown King come from? The Oracle of the Five Elements Temple said that the Double Crown King will appear in this battle. Is it really referring to Tuoba Shang or someone else? Mulanue's beautiful eyes flashed. She made up her mind to find the Double Crown King with the ancestral totem. He might be the best person to help Mulanue deal with Tuoba Shang. On the other side, Yi Guqin, who had left the valley, was flying in the air. He seemed to have sensed something and slowly landed on a cliff. After a while, Su Moyan also landed. He looked deeply at Yi Guqin and said, I didn't expect it to be you, Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin slowly turned around and looked at Su Moyan. He took off his mask, revealing his handsome face. How did you find out? You hid it from me at first, but I knew when the Divine Condor attacked. Su Moyan looked at the Divine Condor standing on Yi Guqin's shoulder. You can still recognize me even when I'm like this. You really love me. The Divine Condor laughed. Thank you for your help in the inner yard. Yi Guqin cupped his fists. To be honest, because of Su Jianshi, he didn't have a good relationship with Su Moyan. Su Moyan seemed to be prejudiced against him. Yi Guqin, I admit that I underestimated you. I thought you were dead, but I didn't expect you to be so strong. In Su Moyan's words, Yi Guqin's strength was only considered not bad. Do you want to spar? Yi Guqin asked. To be honest, I don't have the confidence to defeat you right now. Plus, I only have one goal right now, and that is to find the Saint Herb. Is Su Jianshi doing well? Yi Guqin sighed with a complicated look in his eyes. Her situation isn't good. She won't last more than a few months, Su Moyan said coldly. I'll find the Saint Herb as soon as possible, Yi Guqin said in a low voice. I'll also blend in with the barbarians. Su Moyan threw a vitality ring to Yi Guqin. There are some disguises inside that can help you disguise yourself as a barbarian. Since you have totem power, it should be easier for you to blend in. Thank you. Yi Guqin accepted it and nodded. After explaining the situation, Yi Guqin was about to leave. Su Moyan suddenly said, Yi Guqin, I heard that you have a mortal enemy, Gu Xiaoyang of the Starry Sword Pavilion. That's right. Yi Guqin paused. He didn't know why Su Moyan asked this question. If you want to be with little sister, you'll have to face an enemy that's stronger than Gu Xiaoyang. As long as he's alive, little sister can only drag out an ignoble existence. Su Moyan's tone was cold, as if he had recalled a bad memory. His face was extremely cold. An existence stronger than Gu Xiaoyang. Yi Guqin was silent. He already knew that Su Jianshi and Su Moyan, as well as the villagers of Lotus Village, had extraordinary backgrounds. They couldn't be simple villagers. Who knew what kind of heavy past Su Jianshi had to bear under her innocent appearance? I understand. Su Jianshi's matter is my matter. Yi Guqin's tone was resolute. This was his promise. An extremely faint smile finally appeared on Su Moyan's face, which was as cold as an ancient iceberg, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. I don't expect you to deal with that enemy. I only hope that one day, if Lotus Village is attacked, you can take my sister away. After Su Moyan finished speaking, the wings on his back flapped, and he soared into the sky. Lotus Village is attacked. Will there be such a day? Yi Guqin sighed. He felt a hint of gloominess. Even the divine condor fell into a rare silence as if it had recalled some memories. No matter what, finding the sacred medicine is more important. Yi Guqin stopped sighing. Whether it was Gu Xiaoyang or Su Jianshi's enemy, Yi Guqin felt a sense of urgency. Power. He needed even more power to face everything. Yi Guqin set off again. He searched for a new altar to absorb the power of the 5 elements while heading to the desolate ancient arena in the depths of the Forbidden Zone. Chapter 500. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed since Yi Guqin and the others stepped into the ancient desolation Forbidden Zone. In these 10 days, many things had happened. Especially the battle in the valley. The mysterious figure in blood armor with 2 ancestor totems had set off a storm in the ancient desolation Forbidden Zone. Whether it was the 7 major forces or the barbarian tribe, they were all very curious about the figure in blood armor that had suddenly appeared. However, the only thing they were certain of was that the figure in blood armor was definitely a peerless genius of the barbarian tribe. However, as the battle in the valley came to an end, the news that the sword sect's Yi Guqin had cowered and avoided the battle spread. Everyone in the inner yard was in a deadlock, but the sword sect did not appear. This news was spread widely by those who wanted to spread it. However, it was indeed the truth. Even the people in the inner yard could not refute it. This was a great loss to the sword sect's reputation. However, some people guessed that Yi Guqin must have encountered something, so he did not come. However, no matter what, Yi Guqin did not care about the outside world's evaluation. He was not a person who cared about an empty reputation. Now, Yi Guqin was trying his best to find an altar to awaken the remaining totems. After 2 days, Yi Guqin followed the senses of the 5-colored golden core and found another altar. However, the altar was located in a deep ravine. It should be a wood-type altar. My green dragon totem can also be awakened. At this moment, Yi Guqin did not put away the heavenly demon armor, so he was still in blood armor. His eyes lit up slightly, and he wanted to escape into the valley. However, at this moment, there were waves of fighting outside the valley. Yi Guqin looked over and suddenly saw a beautiful figure. She was in front of a sacrificial altar at the edge of the canyon, fighting with a wild beast that was guarding it. However, what was on the altar was not a 5 elements divine item, but a sage-to-be medicine. It's her. Yi Guqin was slightly surprised. The beautiful figure in white was LV Qinghan. However, it seemed that she was alone, and Zither Fairy was not with her. Looking at the current situation, she should be able to deal with this desolate beast. Yi Guqin had no intention of lending a helping hand. Moreover, his impression of LV Qinghan was really not considered good. Seeing that LV Qinghan was not in any danger, Yi Guqin did not pay any more attention to her. He flapped the wings on his back and descended into the deep canyon. And at the bottom of the canyon, there was indeed a wood elemental altar. There was also an extremely powerful desolate beast guarding it. However, Yi Guqin, who had summoned the Blood Hell Sword and Heavenly Fiend General Armor, was more than enough to deal with this desolate beast. He didn't ask the Divine Condor for help either. Instead, he used the battle to hone his Fire Sword intent and Water Sword intent. Just as Yi Guqin was battling the desolate beast at the bottom of the canyon. At the sacrificial altar outside the canyon, LV Qinghan's battle with the desolate beast had reached its climax. As a top prodigy, LV Qinghan's strength must be extraordinary. As for the desolate beast guarding the quasi-saint medicine, its strength was extraordinary as well. Even with LV Qinghan's cultivation, she was only barely able to kill it after being severely injured. It's finally over. LV Qinghan's cold face was pale, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. But for a quasi-saint medicine, it was all worth it. After all, not everyone was like Yi Guqin, who was lucky enough to obtain a bronze cauldron and possess a quasi-saint medicine. Even for a top prodigy like LV Qinghan, it was very difficult for her to enjoy quasi-saint medicine. However, just as LV Qinghan was about to ascend the sacrificial altar to obtain the quasi-saint medicine, footsteps sounded from the dense forest behind her. Who is it? LV Qinghan shouted and frowned. If the barbarian saint appeared, it would be extremely disadvantageous for her. Because she was in a very bad state at the moment, and she had paid a heavy price to kill that desolate beast. Ha, senior sister LV, why are you so nervous? A gentle voice with a smile was heard, and a white-robed man walked out like a modest gentleman. It was Zhou Tong. So it's you. LV Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. If the barbarian saint appeared, it would be difficult for her to deal with him. As for Zhou Tong, LV Qinghan trusted him completely. She also recognized his character. It was because of this that LV Qinghan always wanted to match him with Zither Fairy. Senior sister LV, you're injured. I have a healing pill here for you. Zhou Tong saw the situation and took out a jade bottle and handed it to LV Qinghan. Thank you. LV Qinghan was caught off guard and reached out to take it. However, the gentle smile on Zhou Tong's face suddenly changed. He opened the bottle cap, and a thick purple poisonous fog suddenly erupted, enveloping LV Qinghan's face. What is this? LV Qinghan's expression changed, and she hurriedly held her breath, but she still inhaled part of the purple poisonous fog. In an instant, LV Qinghan felt the vital energy in her body almost stagnate. With a boom, Zhou Tong struck out with his palm, and LV Qinghan vomited blood and flew backward. Zhou Tong, are you crazy? LV Qinghan was extremely shocked and furious, and she no longer looked like a cold fairy. The reason why she lost her composure was because it was too unexpected. The Zhou Tong she trusted the most actually tried to kill her. Senior sister LV, it would be impolite of me to refuse this quasi-saint medicine. As for Zither Fairy, I will take good care of her. Zhou Tong's expression was sinister, and he struck out with his palm again, blasting LV Qinghan to the edge of the valley. Zhou Tong, you're actually such a shameless person. LV Qinghan's figure fell, and she scolded angrily. A feeling of extreme humiliation exploded from the bottom of her heart. She didn't think that she would be tricked by Zhou Tong from beginning to end. Senior sister, you can be buried here. I will tell the others that you were killed by that blood-armored figure. Zhou Tong looked coldly at LV Qinghan who had fallen into the valley. His tone carried a smile of having succeeded in his scheme. Bastard! LV Qinghan closed her eyes, and a regretful tear fell from the corner of her eye. She hated herself for meeting such a bad person. She was really blind. At this time, she remembered that Yi Guqin had warned her to be careful of Zhou Tong. What was laughable was that LV Qinghan had doubted Yi Guqin's character, and even mocked him for having a problem with his temperament. But now, LV Qinghan finally tasted the consequences of her ignorance. She had already been injured by the desolate beast, and with Zhou Tong's sneak attack and the purple poisonous fog, LV Qinghan was unable to gather the true qi in her body. She had fallen into such a deep valley, and only death awaited her. Outside the valley, Zhou Tong looked at LV Qinghan who had fallen into the valley, and his expression didn't change at all. His gaze was slightly fiery as he kept the quasi-saint medicine in his bag, and a smug smile hung on his lips. Once I refine this quasi-saint medicine, I will truly reach the peak of the 9 transformations of the divine soul. Then, I will enter the desolate ancient arena, and think of a way to seize the will of life and death, and directly break through to the life and death threshold. This way, even that Yi Guqin won't be my match. Not only that, I can also push the blame for LV Qinghan's death to that blood-armored figure. Since he ruined my plan, I will make him pay the price. It had to be said that Zhou Tong's scheme was very deep. His plan was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only would his strength increase, but he could also push the blame to the blood-armored figure. After a little planning, Zhou Tong left directly. And in the deepest part of the valley, Yi Guqin had finally killed the desolate beast. Just as Yi Guqin obtained the wood-type divine item, the divine eagle on his shoulder raised its head, squinted its eyes, and said, "Little Yi Guqin, a great beauty fell from the sky." What? Just now, Yi Guqin had been focused on the wood-type divine item, and didn't check the situation above. When he raised his head, he saw a beautiful figure in white falling down like a butterfly with broken wings. LV Qinghan, it's her. Chapter 501. Yi Guqin looked slightly surprised. Although he had seen LV Qinghan fighting with the wild beast guarding the altar when he entered the canyon. But with LV Qinghan's cultivation, she should be able to deal with that wild beast. So Yi Guqin did not make a move. But the current situation was obviously not so simple. Yi Guqin did not hesitate. He stomped his foot and flew into the air, catching the rapidly falling LV Qinghan. He did not have a good impression of LV Qinghan. But LV Qinghan had taken good care of Zither Fairy. And she was not a bad person. She just stubbornly believed in Zhou Tong, which made her seem a little stupid. You are. LV Qinghan forced her eyes open and saw Yi Guqin wearing a blood-red mask. She did not go to the valley to watch the battle, but she had heard about it during this period. You are the barbarian saint in the valley battle. LV Qinghan's body was extremely weak. Coupled with the corrosion of the purple poisonous fog, she could not stay awake and fainted. But her eyebrows were tightly knitted. She was obviously very upset that she had fallen into the hands of the barbarian saint. She was poisoned. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. He seemed to have thought of something. He temporarily put LV Qinghan down. The vermilion bird wings on his back flapped, and he flew out of the canyon and landed at the edge of the outer altar. But he did not see anyone. He left already. That's fast. Yi Guqin guessed that the person who poisoned LV Qinghan was most likely Zhou Tong. Because only Zhou Tong could gain LV Qinghan's trust and poison her when she was unprepared. Looking around, Yi Guqin did not find any trace of Zhou Tong. He returned to the canyon. The divine eagle landed on LV Qinghan and shouted, "Little Yi, this beauty has been poisoned. If the poison is not removed in time, there may be sequelae." Yi Guqin frowned slightly and went forward to take a look. LV Qinghan's injuries were not light. Not only were there claw marks left by the wild beast, but there were also serious injuries from palm strikes. What was more troublesome was that the purple poisonous fog had gradually spread throughout her body. If it was not completely removed, even if LV Qinghan could barely survive, her cultivation would be greatly reduced, and she would not be able to make any progress in the future. Looking at LV Qinghan, who had fainted and was still frowning, Yi Guqin hesitated. He sighed. Just take it as repayment for taking care of Zither Fairy. Yi Guqin sighed. In the Rhino Divine Palace, Zither Fairy should have been targeted by Pan Shuoyan, Ren Tingting, and the others. Only LV Qinghan, who was a top-tier prodigy, could protect Zither Fairy. Yi Guqin took out a supreme-grade healing pill and stuffed it into LV Qinghan's mouth, temporarily stabilizing her injuries. This poison is not easy to deal with. Yi Guchen frowned slightly. Those claw marks and palm wounds could be slowly healed with pills. However, the purple poisonous fog could not be dispelled by pills. That's right. Wood-type totem power has healing and detoxification effects. I can give it a try. Yi Guchen's eyes suddenly lit up. He urgently needed to stabilize LV Qinghan's injuries and did not have time to refine the wood-type divine item. However, with the azure dragon totem power in his body, he could barely suppress the poisonous fog. But, Yi Guchen hesitated. To detoxify with totem power, he needed to feel the direction of every vein. And to do so, he needed to take off LV Qinghan's clothes. Yi Guchen was a calm person. Although he did not mind, he could not guarantee that LV Qinghan would blame him when she woke up. It would be like Zhu Beiji looking into a mirror and not being human anymore. Little Yi, why hesitate? As the saying goes, saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Believe me, this beauty will be grateful to you when she wakes up. Although the divine condor said so, there was a mischievous smile in his eyes. Ah. Sorry. Yi Guchen was not a person who would drag things out. If LV Qinghan really blamed him when she woke up, he would just leave. After all, LV Qinghan was the one who was poisoned, not him. He untied the belt around LV Qinghan's waist and took off her white dress. Her delicate body was revealed, as white and tender as a freshly peeled lotus root. Her figure was extremely soft and beautiful, as pure as ice and jade. Nothing could be more beautiful. Coupled with her ascetic cold temperament, any man would feel his blood boil. But Yi Guchen's eyes were still calm. Although he was not like the Buddhists who saw women as skeletons, he would not succumb easily. His mind was as hard as a rock. Without hesitation, Yi Guchen directly activated the azure dragon totem power in the 5-colored golden elixir. His palm was suffused with a layer of green light that carried an aura of endless healing. Yi Guchen placed his palm on LV Qinghan's smooth and round body. He ignored the smooth touch and began to feel the direction of the veins under her skin. The wood-type totem power also seeped into her body and began to alleviate the corrosion of the poisonous fog. This healing process lasted for half a day. After half a day, Yi Guchen finally unblocked all the veins in LV Qinghan's body. Although he did not completely remove the poisonous fog in LV Qinghan's body, it was alleviated a little. After Yi Guchen completely refined the wood-type divine object, he could truly remove the poisonous fog in LV Qinghan's body. After casually covering LV Qinghan with his dress, Yi Guchen sat alone and began to regulate his breathing. After swallowing a supreme healing elixir and alleviating the poisonous fog, 2 hours later, LV Qinghan finally opened her eyes slowly with trembling eyelashes. Her first feeling was a little cold. LV Qinghan could not figure out the situation for a moment. She looked down and her expression instantly tensed up. She then looked at the figure in blood armor who was sitting cross-legged not far away. Then her brain suddenly shook, as if there were thousands of thunderbolts. She had been defiled by the barbarians. This was the first thought in LV Qinghan's mind. Die. With an extremely embarrassed and angry shout, LV Qinghan took out a long sword from her origin ring and stabbed Yi Guchen's back fiercely. There was no explanation or reason. Anyone who defiled her body would die. Swoosh. Yi Guchen, who was sitting cross-legged, did not move. The blood hell sword that was stabbed into the ground suddenly flew out and collided with LV Qinghan's sword, bursting out a burst of light. LV Qinghan had not recovered from her serious injuries and the poisonous fog had not been removed. How could she be Yi Guchen's opponent? Immediately, the long sword in her hand was sent flying. Her delicate body retreated and she spat out a small mouthful of blood again. If you use your vital qi again and cause the poison to spread, no one can save you, Yi Guchen said in a low and hoarse voice. LV Qinghan's embarrassed and angry face did not fade away. She sensed a little and found that the purple poisonous fog in her body seemed to have become much thinner. It's you. LV Qinghan looked at Yiguchen. Yiguchen did not reply and sat cross-legged calmly. LV Qinghan bit her red lips. She checked her body and found no signs of being defiled. When you were unconscious, I removed the poisonous fog from your meridians. You are fine for the time being, Yiguchen said indifferently. What? LV Qinghan clenched her jade hands and her delicate body trembled slightly. Didn't that mean that he had touched her body from head to toe? Moreover, this person was the barbarian holy son of the enemy camp. For a moment, LV Qinghan did not know what to do. All kinds of emotions spread in her heart. Chapter 502. LV Qinghan stood rooted to the ground, at a loss of what to do. She was originally cold and indifferent, like a fairy in a painting. But now, because of shame and anger, her cheeks were flushed, and her jade-like hands were clenched tightly. She knew that the blood-armored figure in front of her had saved her life. But she could not cross the hurdle in her heart. No matter what, she was still the top beauty of Lingxi Palace, pure and untainted. But now, her entire body had been seen and touched by this person. Any other woman would not be able to remain calm, let alone a noble woman like LV Qinghan. She glared at Yiguchen and did not say anything more. She sat cross-legged on the other side, tidied up her white dress, took out some elixirs, and began to heal her injured body. Let me tell you, the poison in your body has not been completely removed, Yiguchen said lightly. Then, he took out the wood-type divine object and began to cultivate. I don't need to trouble you, LV Qinghan said in a cold voice. She tried to heal her body by herself, but as soon as she circulated her vital energy, she felt a pain in her veins. The purple poisonous fog that had been temporarily suppressed seemed to show signs of spreading again. LV Qinghan's face was slightly pale, but she gritted her teeth and endured alone. Yiguchen ignored LV Qinghan and cultivated alone. Since LV Qinghan did not appreciate his kindness, he would not be so kind to her. Not many people could make Yiguchen take the initiative to care for them, let alone LV Qinghan. Yiguchen began to refine the wood-type divine object. In an instant, he felt the azure dragon totem in his 5-colored golden core was restless, greedily absorbing the power of the wood-type divine object. A wave of endless wood totem power gradually spread out from his body. Then, a strange scene appeared. Around Yiguchen, many plants broke out of the ground, as if they had been nourished by the spring rain. This strange scene could not escape LV Qinghan's perception. She glanced at Yiguchen from the corner of her eye with a trace of surprise. The wood-type totem power with extreme vitality made LV Qinghan feel a trace of comfort. This was an instinctive reaction of her injured body. LV Qinghan bit her lips and turned her head away, trying her best to calm down. However, the more she circulated her true qi, the more the suppressed poisonous fog began to spread, causing LV Qinghan's face to turn slightly ugly. On the other side, Yiguchen's cultivation had also reached a critical juncture. The azure dragon totem emitted an extremely powerful devouring power, absorbing all the power of the wood-type divine object. The power of the azure dragon totem had reached perfection. At this moment, Yiguchen's entire body surged with azure light. He directly communicated with the azure dragon totem with his spirit and began to awaken it. Soon, half a day had passed. LV Qinghan's purplish poisonous fog, which had been suppressed, recovered and spread out again. Her delicate body and snow-white skin seemed to be covered with a layer of sickly purple. LV Qinghan sat down cross-legged to meditate. But suddenly, she spat out a mouthful of dirty blood and her aura became increasingly weak. If this goes on and the poison mist recovers, my meridians might be crippled. LV Qinghan's face turned pale as she bit her lips. A sorrowful look appeared in her clear eyes. LV Qinghan was furious when she remembered that this injury was caused by Zhou Tong's betrayal. She hated Zhou Tong and hated herself for being blind. If I had known, I would have trusted Yiguchen back then. Why was I so stupid? LV Qinghan's lips curled into a bitter smile. On the other side, Yiguchen had finally awakened the Azure Dragon Totem. Roar! Accompanied by Yiguchen's surging aura, the spirit of the Azure Dragon also burst out from Yiguchen's body, its aura pouring out in all directions. However, because it was in the deepest part of the canyon, the ripples did not spread out like before and were not sensed by the surrounding barbarians. What a powerful totem power! Who is he? The commotion naturally alarmed LV Qinghan. She had heard that the crimson-armored figure in front of her had 2 primogenitor totems. Coupled with the appearance of the Azure Dragon Totem. Didn't that mean that the person in front of her had 3 primogenitor totems? LV Qinghan's eyes were filled with shock. LV Qinghan could not estimate how powerful a Triple Crown King at the primogenitor totem level was. His status in the barbarian race was definitely not low. However, such a person had saved her. LV Qinghan's heart was extremely complicated, but she still had her own persistence and stubbornness, and did not beg him to help. After awakening the Azure Dragon Totem, Yiguchen also had his own understanding of the Wood Sword Will. He had already comprehended the Fire Sword Will, and he did not need much time to comprehend the Water Sword Will and Wood Sword Will. My totem has already awakened, and now I have the ability to completely remove the poisonous fog in your body, Yiguchen said calmly. No need, LV Qinghan said coldly as she sat alone. Yiguchen shook his head and did not say anything more. However, as time passed, LV Qinghan felt as if thousands of ants were eating away at her bones. This purple poisonous fog was temporarily suppressed by Yiguchen at the beginning, so it did not show its horror. Until now, it had completely erupted, and the extreme pain made LV Qinghan wish she was dead. Zhou Tong, you beast! LV Qinghan's face was pale, and sweat poured down like rain. Yiguchen watched indifferently from the side. With his personality, he would not shamelessly help LV Qinghan. He would only help if LV Qinghan asked him to. If this continues, my meridians will be destroyed, and I will never be able to use my true qi again. LV Qinghan was conflicted. She was the top genius of the Rhino Divine Palace, and the most precious daughter of the Saint Origin dynasty. If she was destroyed and became immortal, it was terrifying to think about. LV Qinghan's fingernails almost pierced into her palms. However, what made her angry was that the blood-armored figure just watched indifferently from the side, and did not have any intention of taking the initiative to help. Finally, LV Qinghan could no longer suppress it. She spat out a mouthful of dirty blood, and her body was extremely weak. I'm sorry, I was too impulsive before. LV Qinghan took a deep breath, and her chest rose and fell. She felt that the humiliation at this moment was no less than Zhou Tong's betrayal. However, to be honest, the person in front of her had no obligation to save her. LV Qinghan was just holding a grudge. So? Yiguchen's tone was indifferent. Please, help me. LV Qinghan's voice was trembling. In order to prevent her cultivation from being destroyed, LV Qinghan finally lowered her noble head. Do it yourself, Yiguchen said. When LV Qinghan heard this, she was first stunned, and then there was a touch of shame on her face. This despicable person in front of her actually wanted her to take off her clothes herself. You. LV Qinghan bit her lips until they turned white. This barbarian's holy son was really despicable. However, LV Qinghan's face alternated between green and white as she felt the poisonous fog that was about to completely erupt in her body. After struggling in her heart, she finally reached out and unbuttoned her clothes with trembling hands. Not far away, the divine condor saw this and could not help but say in admiration, "Little Yi, you're really good at hiding your strength. You're playing hard to get. I'm impressed." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.